Master Sheng Tian's half-son gave me 100 years of skill and ordered me to assist Western Chu in governing the world, but all I want is romance, and dreams. What? Does the heavenly way prevent the unification of Western Chu? Then I'll cut off the sky. No one can stop me from completing the task. I want to ask about swords like the world does, but my sword is enough to deter sword cultivators from practicing. I want to compete in martial arts like everyone else. With my internal skills, one move can be overwhelming. My name is Jiang Wangsheng, young master. I hope to hear the sound of the song every night. Key words of the novel. Invincible at the beginning. I am in the three kingdoms, no pop-ups, invincible at the beginning. I am in the three kingdoms, complete collection download, invincible at the beginning. I am in the three kingdoms, latest chapter reading. Chapter 1, Shengtian Banzi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1, Shengtian Banzi Shu, with towering ancient trees, is dense and quiet. In the vast north wind, there is a valley that is flat in all directions, with black stones and white snow, forming a perfect chess game. A gray-haired old man stood with his hand down, gazing at the sky, his eyes filled with contempt. In the corner, 7 people were dressed in black clothes, wearing iron masks, facing the old man and kneeling on one knee. Master, what are you asking me for? A young man in his 20s climbed up to this place and glanced at the people next to him. He was about to help them up when the old man gave a light scolding, and he had to wait patiently on the side. The old man suddenly sighed and said, "The overall situation of the world is bound to merge after a long division. In today's chaotic wars of the three kingdoms, life has been devastated, and our country and family are in dire straits." The young man agreed, "Yes, Western Chu, Southern Tang, and Northern Li are three-legged tripods, and water and fire are incompatible. However, Northern Li dominates the central plains, unifies the northern wilderness Jianghu, and has a prosperous fortune. I estimate that it won't be long before Northern Li can annex the south." The old man said, "Bailey Tianwu Emperor can be the ruler of chaotic times, but not the master of revival. If he gains the world, the outcome can only be like Qin, and the second emperor will perish." The old man changed his tone and said, "But, fate is like this, I don't want to be like this." The young man was taken aback and said, "Do you still want to confront the heavens?" The old man sneered and said, "In vain, you are still my disciple. Since ancient times, many heroes and heroines have claimed to be unparalleled in their glory, but little do they know that they are just birds in the cage of this heavenly way. I was born to be bound by the heavenly way, but I don't believe in this evil. I insist on having a fight with this heavenly way." The young man's face showed surprise and couldn't help but applaud. The old man looked at the young man and said, "The Emperor of Western Chu is known for his benevolence and righteousness. He should be the ruler of Zhongxing, with the assistance of the old Prime Minister who calculated the world. If Western Chu were to compete, the world would be peaceful for more than 800 years. In a while, you will be returning to Western Chu. At that time, I want you to help Western Chu and seize the world." The young man was full of doubt. "Me? What can I do alone?" The old man smiled indifferently, his gaze turning from kindness to malice. He raised his hand and pressed it down, landing a huge force on one of them, causing him to be completely on the ground. The other few black-robed people stood up and retreated to one side after receiving the signal from the old man. "Master, why are you?" The old man snorted coldly, "It's just that you're not honest." As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his palm and seemed to have thrown away a handful of yellow sand. The person fell into the cliff, suffocated, and died. The old man murmured, "If it weren't for this kid present, I would have torn him apart. Wang Sheng, come here." The old man waved. The old man held the young man's hand and said, "From today on, my Tianji pavilion will be yours." He pointed to the kneeling people and said, "Tell me to go down. From today on, all the people in Tianji pavilion will respect this kid." I obey your orders, the few people retreated. The young man's eyes flickered with excitement upon hearing this. Master, are you giving me the property of Tianji Pavilion? Property? Are you very short of money? Of course, the young man nodded quickly. What do you want money for? Acquiring hundreds of acres of fertile land, opening restaurants and gambling houses, henceforth wives and concubines flocked together, singing every night. The young man said solemnly. You dead child, the old man said and patted his head with resentment. The old man let out a low shout and picked him up. The two of them have a spiritual connection, for palms overlapping, and their internal breath circulating with each other. The only bit of internal energy in the youth's body was instantly consumed. Master, what are you doing? The young man looked surprised and shouted, one day as a teacher, one lifetime as a father. Master, you need to think carefully. You can't sacrifice your disciple just to practice martial arts and fight against the heavenly way, can you? The old man looked at the young man with disdain and whispered, shut up. The young man was about to say something, but he noticed that his master's unfathomable internal power was flowing through his 8 meridians, penetrating his limbs and bones, and finally flowing into the elixir field for his own use. Relax your mind and stick to your principles, the old man reminded. Half an hour later, the old man released his hand, put down the young man, and slowly stood up. In an instant, his beard and hair turned white and his body bent. The young man's body seems to be infused with magma, eroding his internal organs. In the next moment, a huge internal force erupted from within him, soaring into the sky. The young man regained his soul and quickly walked forward to help the old man. The old man remained silent, even though he was as angry as a thread. He pushed aside the assistance of the young man and entered the chess game. The young man saw that this chess game had a unique conception, exquisite moves, and a majestic atmosphere, reflecting the dark yellow of heaven and earth, the vast expanse of the universe, and the grandeur of it to the extreme. It was truly not a human game. The mountains are towering, with towering green ranges. The sky is long and clear, with thick clouds hanging down. Eagles hover, howling mournfully. The youth had a faint sense of unease. The old man stood solemnly for a long time, and a stick of incense passed, allowing the strong wind to sweep through. The young man was puzzled and asked, Master, what are you doing? Playing chess. Are you going to play chess with me? The old man shook his head. After a while, he spoke heavily, oh my goodness. The young man was curious in his heart, counting carefully. In the bottom right corner, he saw the calamity that decided the outcome. The old man remained silent, walked to the corner, knelt long on the ground, and acted as a black letter, just like a lucky victory. He clenched his fists and held them high, as if demonstrating against the merciless sky. Sheng Tian Banzi. An old man with no inner strength, about to rot. His voice trembled with fear in the mountains and forests. Laughing from the sky, I would rather die than regret. After speaking, the old man lowered his eyebrows and lowered his head, transforming his body into a round black boulder. The chess game has been established, and no one can shake it. The young man's heart stirred up turbulent waves, kneeling on both knees and performing the ritual of bowing 3 times and kowtowing 9 times. There are innate and acquired differences in the path of practicing martial arts. The postnatal martial artists have grades 1 to 9, while the innate masters have people, earth, heaven, and great freedom in all 4 realms. His name is Jiang Wangsheng, and his father is Jiang Konglu, the minister of war of Western Chu. He has been weak and sickly since childhood. At the age of 3, his master came to his door and claimed that he lacked 1 soul, and could not live to 16. The master took him as an apprentice and taught him a method, which he practiced day by day without increasing his internal strength or improving his martial arts. Jiang Wangsheng spent 4 hours studying and 4 hours forging his body. For over a decade, he had been like a puppet. Today, he suddenly encountered this great change, and for a moment, he didn't know what to do. Young master. A black-robed man climbed up the mountain again. Jiang Wangxing was stunned for a moment and said, "Do you have anything to do?" "The master has an order. After he goes, let me give you this brocade pouch." Jiang Wangxing asked, "You knew your master was going to do this before?" "Yes, last night, the master informed his subordinates of everything. Since that's the case, you should be the person my master trusts the most." "What's your name?" "Subordinate Leng Suxian, are you a woman?" Jiang Wangxing pulled off her mask and couldn't help but take a deep breath when he saw this person with a scruffy beard, extremely lewd, and an insect-like scar on his face. Leng Suxian quickly took off her disguise and coquettishly said, "Young master, I am a person from southern Xinjiang who is good at changing faces and voice. This thing is so useful. Give me a picture another day and make it look like a public face." "Yes." Jiang Wangxing asked, "How much money does Tianji Pavilion have now?" Leng Suxian clearly did not expect this answer. He turned his head to look at the black stone that the old man had just transformed into and sincerely said, "Rich is the best in the world." Jiang Wangxing smiled brightly and said, "I heard from my master that the intelligence of Tianji Pavilion is unparalleled in the martial arts world." "Not bad. The three major dynasties, officials' military armor, and martial arts sects in the martial arts world all purchase intelligence from the Tianji Pavilion. Even the famous Heaven and Earth double rankings in the martial arts world are compiled by the Tianji Pavilion." Jiang Wangxing muttered to himself, "It seems that my master has left me a big treasure. The master's cultivation is unparalleled and omniscient. Before his death, he surpasses the heavens by half." "Do you want to inform the martial arts world?" asked Cold Suxian. Jiang Wangxing shook his head and said, "Master has been living in seclusion all his life. His goal is to be quiet, so there's no need to disturb his elderly family anymore." He opened his brocade bag and found only a piece of paper inside, which read, "Tomorrow, if you fight against the heavens, you will win at most half of your life. You were born without a soul, and are not within the rules of the heavenly way. Your wish to become a teacher can only be fulfilled by you." Jiang Wangxing sighed, "Master really has no last resort. Years of war and fire have only harmed the people. It's time to end it." But Jiang Wangxing said with a puzzled expression in his eyes and a bitter smile, "Master, you also look up to me too much. Even if the world is invincible, breaking through 10,000 armies with one sword is already the limit, let alone the 1 million strong army in Bailey." The next morning, Jiang Wangxing climbed to the mountaintop, overlooking all living creatures, observing the celestial phenomena and stars, gazing at the light veil of the cold moon, and spending spring, summer, autumn, and winter. 1 year later, Jiang Wangxing's internal strength suddenly increased and he entered the fourth realm of innate ease. Jiang Wangxing looked into the sky and murmured, "Heaven and earth merge to create all things, and yin and yang connect and change." He stood up and understood the 9 swords. The family summoned Jiang Wangxing to return to the imperial capital of Western Chu, Tianwang City. Jiang Wangxing held a bamboo stick and wrote a big book on the cliff. "I see the chaos of heaven and earth, I see the dry flow of rivers. I see the 3 mountains and plains, and I speak of the 5 mountains and hills. Dragons and phoenixes dance, and the sword's meaning is self-formed. Seeing it, it is shocking. Our Western Chu was established by martial arts, and the masters of the interior were unknown. Why could 2 thieves sneak into the deep palace and steal our country's treasures?" The Chu emperor's veins surged on the dragon chair, rebuking the civil and military officials below who were hanging their heads. "What do you all do to eat, including the Minister of Rites, the Dali Temple, the Xuanjia army, and the city guard?" Chu emperor clenched his fists tightly. "Your Majesty, the incoming people are 2 8th-grade masters with mysterious martial arts skills and frequent hidden weapons. They should be from Bailey Middle School. I have arranged for the Dali Temple to set up a network of heaven and earth in the northern region, and this object will never leave our Western Chu territory. In the court, the Dali temple minister confidently reported to the Chu emperor. Your Majesty, I have sent a letter to the border to prepare in advance and guard the country's gates, said Jiang Konglu, the Minister of War. End of this chapter. Chapter 2, Halfway Truncation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2, Halfway Truncation. Your Majesty, an old eunuch whispered a few words in the ear of the Chu emperor, and his anger slightly subsided. Chu Huanglang said in a voice, send the order. If anyone can retrieve the precious treasures of their country, I will appoint him as the commander-in-chief of the Xuanjia army. The southern border of Western Chu. Jiang Wangsheng held a bamboo stick in his hand, and the wind was blowing under his feet, like a flying swan passing through snow. If Feng Su were to control the wind, he would see a tea shop on the roadside and land on the ground, shouting, "Boss, bring a pot of tea." The two were wrapped in black clothes, a man and a woman, calmly drinking tea and talking. Seeing the young man's lightness skills, they showed a wary expression. The man looked at the young man at the next table and whispered, I can't detect his internal strength, but his lightness skills are very skilled. He glanced at the woman beside him. The woman asked in a low voice, could it be that they are here to catch us? No, don't worry, junior sister. The man squeezed out a smile and hugged the woman. We were discovered by the old eunuch, exposing our own martial arts skills. They definitely couldn't have imagined that we would go against the trend and borrow from the southern Tang dynasty. The woman is still worried, but... The man patted her, took out a bag of medicine from his pocket, hid it in his sleeve, and walked to the tea shop where he brewed tea. He quietly poured all the white powder into the tea. Sir, what's up with you? The tea shop owner flattered and smiled as he saw this person coming. The man gave a faint smile and took out an ingot of silver and placed it on the table. Another pot of tea, he said, okay, wait a moment. Jiang Wangsheng carried a book of novels with him, and after reading it for a while, the tea arrived. Despite the scorching hot water, he drank it in large gulps into his stomach. I drank one cup after another, and soon I had a clean drink. A man and a woman smiled knowingly and stood up to leave. A few miles away. The woman breathed a sigh of relief and smiled happily, Senior brother, you still have a solution. You have too much suspicion, the man comforted. Suddenly, the two of them stopped and looked ahead in terror. On the tree by the post station, a young man stepped on a light branch, holding a bamboo stick and jokingly looking at the two of them. You, how could that be? The young man angrily said, you only need to use poison and anesthesia. But why do you need to use laxatives? As he spoke, his body trembled lightly, took a deep breath, and let out a painful cry. With his skill, he can withstand all kinds of poison. But aphrodisiacs, laxatives, and other medicinal substances are beyond his defense. The woman looked at the man in confusion. The man shrugged helplessly and said, all the medicine has been used up, only the laxatives are left. The people of Dali Temple suffer death. The two of them looked at each other and erupted, drawing their swords and attacking Jiang Wangsheng's face. Jiang Wangsheng flew down with a gentle shake of his bamboo stick. Not good, how could his speed be so fast? The two of them flew into mid-air, and Jiang Wangsheng had already landed. The bamboo stick had hidden internal strength and penetrated their acupoints, instantly destroying the internal energy in their meridians, like a sword moving through the elixir field. Jiang Wangsheng muttered to himself, I don't have the habit of being a killer. I'll waste your martial arts and take care of myself in the future. What kind of person is he? We two 8th grade martial artists, surprisingly, one man and one woman had a bleeding mouth and collapsed on the ground, looking helplessly at each other. Jiang Wangsheng gave a graceful smile and said leisurely, my name is Jiang Wangsheng. The hope of expectation, the Sheng of singing every night. He approached the two of them, who were constantly wriggling on the ground. Jiang Wangsheng walked towards the woman, looked at her face, chuckled lightly, and tapped the acupoints on her limbs to restrict her movements. Jiang Wangsheng extended his sinful hand to her chest. The man next to him saw this and his eyes were like copper bells. He shouted hysterically, "Let go of your dirty hands and don't touch her. Otherwise, I'll kill you." Upon hearing this, Jiang Wangsheng rolled his eyes and said, "I am a gentleman. A righteous person cannot stop their hands." Jiang Wangsheng reached into the woman's clothes and groped to the right, touching something hard. A woman who wants to cry without tears can only groan weakly. What is so precious and still protected? Jiang Wangsheng pulled out a bundle and opened it, revealing a box made of gold. The young man untied the woman's acupoint and turned around to leave. Jiang Wangsheng's eyes lit up and he said, "What a good thing. When I go to Tianwang City and pawn him, there must be several tens of taels of silver here." He tapped lightly and said, "Hollow." Jiang Wangsheng used his palm to exercise his martial arts skills and pushed open the lid of the box. In front of his eyes was an ancient book with a blue cover. Upon opening it, he saw handwritten text. With a glance, he was sweating profusely. Border military deployment plan, military formation, financial circulation, confidential reports from various officials, and more. Jiang Wangsheng quickly closed it, placed it in the box, and restored it to its original state. He turned around and stared at the two people who had limped away, muttering, "Where exactly did they get it from? This is a heinous crime of beheading." Tianwang City, Jiangfu. Jiang Wangsheng holds a bamboo slip in his hand. That was exactly what Leng Suxian presented upon entering the city, which recorded all the news about Jiang Mansion. Jiang Wangsheng has an older brother named Jiang Wanqiu, who is 2 years older than him. My father recently continued playing, and now the only remaining wife is Xue Minglan. According to intelligence, Jiang Wanqiu is diligent, humble, courteous, has a wide range of friends, and is proficient in both literature and martial arts. Jiang Wangsheng's gaze lingered on Xue Minglan's intelligence department, and he muttered to himself, "This stepmother is actually from the southern Tang dynasty. Her surname is Xue, and she seems to be of the same clan as the southern Tang empress." The female emperor of the southern Tang dynasty originally had the surname Xue, but later changed her name and surname, and was sent to the palace. After gaining power, those who knew about it were either slaughtered or hidden. Jiang Wangsheng thought to himself, "I can't even confirm the Tianji pavilion. It seems that even the Western Chu side doesn't know the identity and background of this Xue Minglan." Jiang Wangsheng stared at the sky and was lost in thought, pondering the path of maneuvering. "Second young master, please." A maid walked out gracefully. Jiang Wangsheng saw that she was just a maid, but her features were delicate and polite, which made him curious about his home that he had not met in over a decade. The gate of the mansion is opened, and the beauty of the solemn ceremonial sequence of the courtyard is evident. Walking dozens of steps, the corridor in the mansion is full of green trees and verdant vines, with fish swimming in the lotus pond. The combination of natural creation and cultural ghost axes is like a perfect combination. Under the guidance of the maid, Jiang Wangsheng went to his father's study. The maid bowed and whispered, "Second young master, last night your majesty summoned all the officials to court. But the master ordered the young master to wait a moment and come back soon." "Okay." Jiang Wangsheng pushed the door and entered. He saw sandalwood beams, crystal lamps, and a 6-foot-wide agarwood table, with precious stationery such as wolf hair pens and celadone brush washes placed on top. Along the side were ancient paintings such as The Misty Reign of Jiangshan. Jiang Wangsheng summed up in his heart, "Can he buy so many precious items based on the monthly salary of a military minister and the ice and charcoal respect? Fortunately, I'm not from Dali Temple, otherwise I would have to seal my father up and take him into custody," Jiang Wangsheng muttered to himself. "What are you saying?" A middle-aged man pushed the door in. The newcomer was dressed in a purple satin brocade rooster official robe, with a crown on his head and an extraordinary demeanor. He glanced at the young man and said, "What's wrong? Do you still want to put your father and me in jail?" "No, it's not. Jiang Wangsheng chuckled. Jiang Konglu patted Jiang Wangsheng, looked up and down, his eyes fixed on his face, and smiled contentedly. You've grown so big. Do you remember when you were taken away by your master? You were just a little older, the middle-aged man gestured, feeling quite sad and murmured, now that you've grown up, you're a talented person. Jiang Konglu looked into Jiang Wangsheng's eyes and said sincerely, you look like your mother. Especially your eyes. By the way, how has your master been lately? Jiang Wangsheng looked gloomy and said, Master, he has gone to immortality. Upon hearing this, the middle-aged man had no emotional fluctuations and only said, Master Apprentice, we mourn. Today when I went to court, the civil and military officials were scolded by His Majesty again. Jiang Konglu sat down and covered his forehead. The treasure of Western Chu has been lost, involving military, political, and financial power, and we have not been able to catch anyone for a long time. Jiang Wangsheng knew in his heart that it was mostly what he had snatched. He unconsciously touched the object in his arms. Sheng, these things are all gifts from others. That's still bribery, isn't it? Jiang Wangsheng showed a, I understand, expression. Be cautious. Jiang Konglu rolled his sleeves and said proudly, My father is a minister of the Ministry of War. He has gained the trust of your Majesty and has repeatedly made contributions. Therefore, your Majesty has bestowed these treasures. You all have so many good things, isn't it the Minister of War? Jiang Kong said, the Minister of War was General Yang Shao, who used to go through life and death with the former emperor. Now, your Majesty is worried about his health, so he has taken over the military power and been appointed as the Minister of War. However, I am responsible for handling all matters related to the Ministry of War. Wangsheng sat down on his own and said, So, your Majesty is worried that General Yang's prestige is quite high, and once he takes over military power, it will threaten him. You child, Jiang Kong said, you are practicing in the mountains of Shu. How come your thoughts are so complex? General Yang has a life-saving grace towards the late emperor and His Majesty, and is His Majesty's second father. In addition, the former Prime Minister Chen Bangzhou has made indelible contributions to the founding of the country and is known as the Prime Minister Father by His Majesty. Jiang Wangsheng instructed, these two people have great power of speech in the court. If they reach a consensus, it will surpass your Majesty's orders. Jiang Wangsheng took off a sword hanging on the wall and was about to say something. Jiang Kong said, this sword is called Ho Yu, and it was an early sword worn by the sword armor elder. Your elder brother always pesters me for it. Why not give it to big brother? You don't practice martial arts. Jiang Konglu flipped his face and said, what are you saying? After all, as a father, he is also a 5th-grade martial artist. Although he doesn't look good enough in Tianwang City, he still belongs to the ranks of experts in the military. Jiang Wangsheng drew his sword and saw that the sword intent had not yet dissipated. He thought to himself, the meaning of wind and rain has not dissipated for years. In this martial arts world, it can indeed be called sword armor. Father, was the spring and autumn sword house founded by the old man Jian Jia? The young man asked. The martial arts world knows everything, and everyone under the sword armor elder's disciples is like a dragon. Wangsheng muttered to himself, according to the intelligence from the Tianji Pavilion, the swordsmanship of the disciples of the Spring and Autumn Sword Mansion is completely different from this. Why does this old man keep it hidden from his disciples? It's not interesting enough. Jiang Konglu sighed and said, this Ho Yu sword was gifted by General Yang, and I have treasured it for over a decade. He stood up and said, over the years, I have not fulfilled my duty as a father. Stop, stop, stop. Wangsheng hurriedly said, you're also a second-class official, so we don't have to cry and recognize each other. Jiang Konglu laughed and scolded, who wants to hold your head and cry with you? Take this Ho Yu sword and carefully study the sword intent of the sword armor elder. One day, you can also become a master like him, Jiang Konglu said seriously. End of this chapter. Chapter 3, Looking for This. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3, Looking for This. Jiang Wangxing carefully recalled and secretly slandered, the 9 swords that I have comprehended, any form, with all my might, are enough to make the hearts of swordsmen in the world unstable. Well, I don't like using swords, Wangxing replied. Jiang Konglu stood up and said, since you're back, come with me to visit General Yang. Okay, Wangxing's mouth rippled. I've heard that General Yang has experienced countless battles, is brave and strategic, and is a brave hero. I must see him today. Jiang Konglu rode in an exclusive carriage, while Jiang Wangxing rode alone. On the way, he said, when will you also provide me with a carriage? What carriage do you want? Jiang Konglu lifted the curtain and asked with a smile. It's best to have a larger space and be accompanied by a few stunning beauties at any time. Upon hearing this, Jiang Konglu's face turned cold. He lowered the curtain and snorted coldly, rotten wood cannot be carved. The style of General Yang's mansion is simple, but it is guarded by dozens of soldiers. Jiang Wangxing had just dismounted when he noticed the fluctuation of the internal power of a 9th-grade warrior. Yang Xiao was dressed in a white battle robe, wiping his silver armor. The carved dragon and golden spear on the shelf are filled with military documents in front of the case. Yang Xiao turned around and said, Konglu, why are you free to come to my place today? Take a seat. Before he could finish speaking, he saw the young man beside Jiang Konglu. The old general gazed at the young man in front of him, dressed in a green shirt, his eyes trembling like hungry tigers, his breath as clear as the moon and breeze, and he was secretly taken aback. The two of them looked at each other and said to Sheng, he is also of the 9th grade. With my great freedom, I can't even detect him. At the next moment, he sighed in his heart, with a murderous aura, he can be restrained to the point of returning to simplicity, truly powerful. Yang Xiaoxin said, he doesn't have any internal power fluctuations on his body. He's either an ordinary person or. Jiang Wangxing grinned and said, young Jiang Wangxing, pay respects to General Yang. Yang Xiao helped him up and said, heroes make young men. He believed that the son of the Minister of War's attendant could not be an ordinary person without martial arts skills, so he considered him to be of the upper class in the 9th grade. The general praised falsely. Take another chair, Yang Xiao said to the 9th grade warrior who was protecting him. No need, Jiang Kong said. Wang Sheng looked at his father helplessly. Jiang Kong said, he has been practicing in Shu all along. As soon as he comes back today, I will bring him to pay his respects to you. You are still the same old man, thinking of going to the battlefield. Yang Zhao's eyes widened and he said, old. Am I old? No, you look like you're only in your 30s or 40s. It's a pity not to go to the battlefield, Wang Xing chuckled. Yang Xiao laughed heartily and said, you're right. I also think I'm still in a year of war. With armor and a long spear, I clean them every day. As long as your majesty issues orders, I can lead the army in armor and directly attack Bailey. Jiang Konglu coughed for a moment and said to himself, do you know what happened in the palace yesterday, old man? Yang Xiao nodded and said, someone sent me a message. Unexpectedly, the 5 supervisors of the Imperial Household Department, 3 of them were of the 8th grade, 1 was of the 9th grade, and there was also a master of the heavenly list who managed to make 2 8th grade warriors from Bailey run away. Jiang Konglu, upon seeing Wang Xing's gaze, took the initiative to explain, you don't know anything. There is a sect in the martial arts world called Tianji Pavilion. They are familiar with the 3 teachings and 9 streams, exploring martial arts intelligence, and awarding the heaven and earth double ranking. On the heavenly list, there are 30 strongest 9th grade talents. On the earthly list, there are the strongest young talents in the world, as well as the ranking of divine weapons and sections. Wang Xing kept nodding, indicating that he knew. Although he is the latest person in charge of the Tianji Pavilion, the next compilation of the heaven and earth double rankings will be a matter of 1 sentence from him. Jiang Konglu whispered, "Brother, do you know what was stolen?" Yang Shao glanced at Wang Xing next to him and replied, "Your Majesty ascended the throne at a young age and is as wise as a fool. For over 20 years, all important information about Western Chu has been recorded, and only at a critical moment can a reasonable judgment be made. Oh, this is equivalent to writing a diary, being caught by someone." Jiang Konglu gave him a glare and said, "Don't be reckless." Yang Shao smiled and said, "Rough words are not rough reasoning. However, in Tianwang City, don't say anything related to your Majesty." "Yes." The two continued to discuss, and Wang Sheng was about to play with Yang Zhao's carved dragon golden spear when Jiang Konglu quickly drank. Yang Shao waved his hand to indicate that it was okay. "My gun was passed down by my master. The first time I used it, I saved a prince in front of the battle, which earned me the appreciation of the late emperor. From then on, I was drunk and lay on the battlefield." Wang Xing smelled the smell of blood still emanating from the tip of the gun, and with a gentle touch, he was scratched. He slowly spoke up, "The meaning of the gun is drifting, like a fairy approaching the mortal world. Is the old general the disciple of the gun immortal Tong Yuan?" Yang Shao happily said, "Exactly." He looked at Jiang Konglu and said, "You can tell my martial arts skills just by the intention of the gun, great talent. Young man, you really have a good son." Jiang Konglu chuckled. At this moment, a burly man walked in with a swift and fierce gait, his chi and blood soaring to the sky. He held a square-drawn halberd and bowed to Yang Shao, saying, "My adoptive father, there is a military secret guard from Dali Temple." He glanced at Jiang Wangxing standing lazily, hesitating to speak. Yang Shao said, "It's okay. This is your Uncle Jiang's second son, Jiang Wangxing. He is my adopted son, Yu Jingshan." Jiang Wangxing nodded and saluted him. The man turned a blind eye and said, "Bailey has increased its defense of the border, and according to the informant's report, the 10,000 Huban army has already arrived at the border." Huban army. The news is real. Yang Shao stood up abruptly. Yu Jingshan's face was also serious. Multiple informants came to report at the same time. "If you guess correctly, that thing has already fallen into their hands. My adoptive father, do you want the Ministry of War to change its defensive battle formation?" Jiang Wangxing asked in a low voice, "What's the origin of the Huban army? It's so powerful." Without waiting for the empty stream of the river to speak, Yu Jingshan stopped drinking and said, "The Emperor of Bailey exerted high-pressure measures on the martial arts world, and all the surrendered martial artists of the martial arts world were thrown into the army of Huban, with a minimum rank of 4 and a maximum rank of 9 on the heavenly list." Yu Jingshan saw that Jiang Wangxing, as the son of the Minister of War's attendant, had no standing posture or internal strength, so he must be an ignorant and inexperienced playboy. He, who comes from a commoner background, hates playboys the most. Yu Jingshan continued, "The news has been transmitted to the palace. It is unlikely that in time, your Majesty will summon his adoptive father and uncle." Jiang Konglu took a deep breath and said, "No, that thing hasn't arrived in their hands yet. According to the calculation of time, even if they are fast and work day and night, they can only return from the north. However, the checkpoint has already been fortified and no news has been reported." Yang Shaoqian said heavily, "It seems that they are determined to win." Yu Jingshan hurriedly said, "My adoptive father, why don't you let me lead troops to support the northern border?" Yang Shao gave him a deep glance and said, "Jingshan, don't be impatient in everything, especially in the battle of unifying the army. Once anxious, big flaws will be exposed. Yes, children remember. The key now is what they stole." Jiang Wangxing suddenly interjected, "Could it be that they deliberately exposed the martial arts path of Bailey, wanting us to focus our attention on the northern realm, and then take the opposite approach, returning from the southern Tang dynasty to Bailey?" Yu Jingshan snorted coldly, faced with the 5 major eunuchs in the palace. If 2 8th-grade martial artists do not expose their own martial arts, they will undoubtedly die. Ha, your knowledge is shallow and your martial arts are mediocre, so naturally you don't know the truth behind it. Jing Shan, no disrespect. Yang Xiao drank lightly. Yu Jingshan reluctantly hugged Jiang Wangsheng. Yang Xiaodao said, after all, I dare not gamble. Only Dali Temple in Tianwang City has the right to go on duty outside. The enemies are two 8th grade martial artists with good martial arts. Dali Temple has limited manpower, and only a few scouts go to the south. Jiang Konglu nodded in agreement and said, I have also arranged to strengthen the defense of the southern border. However, there are dense rivers and lakes there, as well as marine distribution. The ventilation gap in Wulin High School is long, and deep diving is difficult to prevent. Jiang Konglu helplessly covered his face and leaned back. Once those things flow into Bailey, they will soon invade our Western Chu on a large scale. Yang Xiao touched his armor, his eyes burning with fierce fighting spirit. If you win, you must fight, if you fight, you must win. Jiang Konglu smiled wryly and said, in times of adversity, if one misses a horse, it is not a blessing. With the help of our defense plan, we can flexibly change and lure the enemy deeper, which is also like joining the army. Yu Jingshan said with great righteousness, my adoptive father, I will enter the palace to request orders and lead troops to rush to the northern border. Jiang Wangsheng looked at the sad and helpless expressions of the two elderly people, touching the hard thing on his chest. After hesitating for a long time, he slowly took out the gold box and whispered, are you looking for this? End of this chapter. Chapter 4, Summoning by Emperor Chu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4, Summoning by Emperor Chu. Yang Xiao and Jiang Konglu looked up together, glanced at the object in his hand, and then exchanged a glance. The air fell into a deathly silence. Jiang Konglu stuttered, You, where did you get it from? Yang Xiao cast a hopeful gaze. Yu Jingshan's eyes shifted downwards and his eyebrows furrowed. Jiang Wangsheng was filled with righteous indignation and said, that man and woman are so despicable. They didn't even want to talk to them at first, but they suspected that I was from Dali Temple and gave me laxatives, so I snatched the things. You. Jiang Konglu pointed at him, why didn't you tell me earlier? Wangsheng said pitifully, I didn't know it was this either. Besides, I was thinking I could sell it for money. Jiang Konglu's eyes rolled, my goodness, do you still want to treat this thing like that? Zhouzu. Thank you. Yang Zhao's face became serious as he took a step forward and whispered, have you seen the content inside? No, Wangsheng subconsciously said. Jiang Konglu stared at Sheng like a falcon. Wangsheng was about to say something more. Yang Xiao instructed, regardless of whether you have seen the content inside or not, even if your majesty asks, you must say that you have not seen it. Have you heard it clearly? Yes. Yu Jingshan regained his senses and quickly questioned, can you fight against two 8th grade soldiers? Without him, only hands are familiar. I couldn't even notice the internal energy fluctuations on you. Yu Jingshan's tone suddenly stopped, tightly gripping Fang Tianhua's halberd. Yang Xiao gave a meaningful smile and said, Jingshan, I have repeatedly told you that soldiers should be cautious of arrogance and impatience. Remember, children, Yu Jingshan said in a deep voice. He practiced day and night, narrowly escaping death on the battlefield multiple times, and surprisingly, he was not as good as a cynical young master. Thinking of this, Yu Jingshan's nails were pressed into his flesh. Kong Lu, ride a fast horse and return this item to your majesty. I can prove that this item was taken back by Prince Jiang Wangsheng alone, and has nothing to do with anyone. Yang Xiao said. No problem. Yang Xiao looked at Wangsheng and explained, above the court, your majesty personally said, those who can retrieve the treasures will be appointed as the commander of the Xuanjia army, with a 5th rank official position. Yu Jingshan sighed and said, our Xuanjia army of Western Chu and the Huban army of Bailey have similar skills. There are a total of 8,000 soldiers, including 3,000 heavy swordsmen and 5,000 light swordsmen. Your Majesty never dreamed that someone would actually take it back. Tomorrow, your Majesty will announce that you will go to court, go back early, and prepare some decent attire. Yang Xiao stood up and joked, your outfit is not very good. Isn't it good? I think it's quite handsome. Yang Xiao smiled and said, walking in the martial arts world, being carefree and unrestrained is excellent. But when going to court, one needs to wear a crown and tie their waist tightly. Your behavior may make some civil servants feel frivolous, so I'll read your book. I see, Uncle Xie suggested it. Jing Shan, send off Wangsheng. Yes, adoptive father. Walking to the door, Yu Jingshan looked up and down at Jiang Wangsheng and asked, what grade are you? Wangsheng thought for a moment and said, what level do you think I am? What level do you think I am? Yu Jingshan thought of what he had just said and felt ashamed. He clenched onto Fang Tianhua's halberd and was about to use it to test his martial arts skills when a young man wearing a silver armor ran out. Yu Jingshan looked at this person contemptuously and said, this is my adoptive father's only child. Yang Sisui. My name is Jiang Wangsheng. Are you Uncle Zhang's second son? Nice to meet you. Yang Xixiao held a red tassel gun, with straight features, almost carved from the same mold as Yang Xiao. I'll bid farewell first. Jiang Wangsheng showed a meaningful expression and said to himself, my martial arts are not as good as Yu Jingshan's. The next morning, while Wangsheng was still sleeping soundly, he was picked up by Jiang Konglu and ordered the maid to change his prepared dress. Wangsheng's eyes were almost closed, and when he opened them again, he was already in front of the palace. The Hall of Supreme Harmony, with its golden roof and vermilion gate, is supported by multiple red giant pillars. Each pillar is carved with a spiral and lifelike golden dragon, which is particularly spectacular. Walking into it, there was a white-haired old man sitting on a crane chair on either side of the civil and military official station. On the throne of the golden lacquer-carved dragon, sat a man in his 30s, slightly chubby, looking down at the crowd without anger or arrogance. As Jiang Wangsheng stepped into the hall, there were faint and fragmented voices of discussion on both sides. The Chu emperor opened his slightly closed eyes and looked down at the young man. The old prime minister also glanced at him, nodded slightly, and closed his eyes. Daring Jiang Wangsheng, why don't you kneel when you meet your majesty? A third-rank official stood up and shouted in righteousness. Jiang Konglu narrowed his eyes and stared at the person, his fierce expression flashing away. The Chu emperor did not respond and looked at the young man jokingly, hoping for his performance. Jiang Wangsheng remained silent. The cold wind blew by, and the person stood among the officials, feeling both desolate and lonely. The Emperor of Chu originally wanted to see the youthful vigor and vigorous display of power. But the expectation fell through, so he could only wave his hand and signal him to go back. All officials arrived together, and everyone knelt down to worship the emperor. The old prime minister stood up from the crane chair and bowed. The beloved ministers are exempt from courtesy. Chu emperor smiled faintly and said, I believe all the beloved ministers have already heard that Jiang Wangsheng, the attendant of the Ministry of War and the son of Jiang Aiqing, has regained the precious treasure of his country from 2 thieves with his own strength. Your Majesty, a majestic man dressed in armor stood out and said, the 2 thieves are 8th-grade warriors, not just a child who can retake them. It must be that Jiang Shilang sent someone to assist. Yeah, another soldier stepped out and said, I heard that there is a master in Jiang Shilang's mansion who claims to be the strongest in the 8th rank. He has taken down 2 injured Northly bandits, more than enough. Jiang Konglu disdains to sneer. Jiang Aiqing, what do you want to say? Chu Emperor asked knowingly. Your Majesty, when the dog took out the treasure, it was inside General Yang's mansion, and General Yang could prove it. The Chu Emperor nodded and said, all the beloved ministers, have you heard me? That's not necessarily true, objected the voice. A person walked out and said word by word, the old general is highly respected, but ultimately he is the Minister of War. It is difficult to guarantee that Mr. Jiang will collude with General Yang to testify. As soon as this sentence was spoken, several elderly soldiers stood up. General Yang is an unparalleled hero. How could he lie about a leader's position? Do you think General Yang is just an ordinary person like you? General Yang, with a strong sense of righteousness, is the martial god of Western Chu. It is not something that thieves like you can slander. The old Prime Minister's face was gloomy like water, staring at him seriously. The Chu Emperor's eyes showed a murderous intent. Love Qing, you made a mistake. My lord, I know my sin. The man retreated into the ranks of officials, feeling anxious and fearful. Since that's the case, Jiang Wangxing listens to the announcement. Chu Emperor waved his hand and said, "Today, I am honored. Jiang Wangxing, for me, the Xuanjia army is large, commanding and leading." Jiang Konglu reminded, "Kneel down, thank you." Wangxing sighed in his heart and reluctantly spoke, "Grass people. Your Majesty, wait a moment." The Minister of Works, Minister of Rights, and more than 10 civil servants were listed simultaneously. The Chu Emperor frowned, but showed a look of anticipation. "Your Majesty. More and more officials are coming out to advise." The Chu Emperor took a deep breath and slowly said, "I am the Emperor, with 9 words in my mouth." There are many opinions among the beloved ministers, and it must be that Jiang Wangxing is still young and difficult to convince others. Therefore, this award will be postponed for the time being. One day, when Jiang Wangxing is able to subdue the crowd, he will be appointed as the commander again. I support the proposal. I support the proposal. The ministers all agreed. Who can say for sure about the future? If he suddenly dies, what is this reward worth? The old Prime Minister remained silent, sitting quietly on a crane chair, wandering aimlessly, observing his nose and nourishing his heart. Go back home. Jiang Kong said, "You have also seen it in the court. The political parties are in conflict, and the undercurrents are surging. I didn't expect you to directly become the commander of the Xuanjia army." Jiang Konglu sat down and explained, "The Xuanjia army is the support of our Western Chu and Bailey Huban armies in their confrontation, and it is of great significance. In fact, Your Majesty did not intend to give you this official position. I can see it, otherwise how could he speak slowly during the reward, just waiting for someone to stop him?" Jiang Kong said, "Although that's the case, you have no jokes or accidents. This leadership position must be yours. So, you must be careful in your future actions." Jiang Wangxing recalled going to court today and asked, "This emperor is old?" Jiang Konglu coughed for a moment. Wangxing quickly changed his tone and said, "Our Majesty is not easy." How to say it? Jiang Konglu became interested. Firstly, with this reward, it will definitely attract the attention and assassination of civil and military officials, in order to temper me. Secondly, you can use me to see all the fish in the deep pool of Sheng Tian. Wangcheng. Jiang Konglu praised, "You kid, you can do it. You're much smarter than your big brother. This Ho Yu sword, take your self-defense and I have arranged an excellent escort for you." As soon as the words fell, a man walked through the screen, dressed in simple clothes, with thick eyebrows and big eyes. Jiang Konglu introduced, "His name is Shengtian, a master of the 7th level. He will soon be able to enter the 8th level realm, and it would be great if he could be your guard." Wang Xing pursed his lips and whispered to Jiang Kong, "He's a 7th grade, he can't even beat me. He's in danger, and he needs me to come and save him." Jiang Kong said, "The realm cannot determine a person's level of combat power. He is definitely superior to most 8th level martial arts in terms of subtle control." Shi Chenyang said calmly, "On the 8th grade, I can also kill." Jiang Konglu looked at the knife in his hand and pondered. Jiang Kong said, "There must be someone around you to take care of it, right? It's really not possible. It's extremely convenient to help you keep your things." Shi Chenyang nodded in agreement. "Okay. Jiang Wangsheng walked out of the room and turned to look directly into Shengtian's eyes. He said coldly, "Your internal power flow is completely different from my Western Chu martial arts. Are you from Bailey?" As he spoke, a gust of wind rose in his palm, ready to take action and kill him at any moment. End of this chapter. Chapter 5, Number 1 in the world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5, Number 1 in the world. Shengtian also looked directly at Wangsheng and said, "You're right. I'm indeed from Bailey Middle School, and Lord Jiang knows my identity." Jiang Wangsheng withdrew his strength. "But I'm curious, how can you see the flow of my internal power?" Shengtian stared at Wangsheng's hand that was retracted. "Your skill. Are you 9th grade?" "Almost." Shengtian presented the Marquis Moon sword with both hands and said, "With your strength and the combination of this sword, there are indeed few opponents in Tianwang City. However, if the mechanism is a hidden crossbow and 100 people come out together, you may need me." "Can they really come out with 100 people?" Jiang Wangsheng sneered, then recalled and murmured, "With their power, there is indeed a possibility. Send the sword back, it's inconvenient to hold it." With his skill, if he wields a sword, someone will surely die and innocent people will be implicated. Outside the mansion, the sound of horse hooves echoed. Jiang Wangsheng muttered to himself, "Big brother is back." Sheng Jiang Wanqiu saw Jiang Wangsheng welcoming him at the door and came up with a bear hug. "I heard you're so powerful now, you're going to become the commander of the Xuanjia army." No, big brother, you're amazing." Jiang Wangsheng glanced at the group of disciples behind Jiang Wanqiu. "It's your ability to have so many people willing to follow you." "I have seen second young master." The disciples saluted. "Let's go, you and my brothers, enjoy the wine." Jiang Wanqiu pulled Wangsheng, "Before I left, I heard my father say you should come back, so I ordered a jar of good wine in advance. Let's go to the restaurant." Big brother, I don't like the hustle and bustle," Jiang Wangsheng said solemnly. "Okay, come to my courtyard, just you and me, let's reminisce about the past." The pure moon shines brightly, the bright river shadows together, both the surface and the inside are clear. Jiang Wanqiu said, "Sheng, have you been working hard outside these years?" "Not bad, my master treated me quite well. Alas, I had intended to meet this extraordinary expert, but unfortunately, it was fate without fate." Jiang Wanqiu straightened up and said, "When you were a child, you fell ill every day. In my impression, you never got out of bed much." "Yeah, my memories before I became a teacher were all in bed, eating, sleeping, and taking medication. It's good for you to come back now. Do you have the habit of staying at home? Do you want to come to my place, you see?" Jiang Wanqiu showcased the charm of her small courtyard. "No trouble, after all these years, I've become accustomed to it alone." Jiang Wangsheng hesitated for a moment and asked, "Big brother, are you currently in an official position?" "Yes, I work in the Ministry of Justice. I was supposed to welcome you back, but suddenly there was an extermination case that I co-handled with the Dali Temple and pursued them all the way to the border before taking them down," Jiang Wanqiu replied. "You must be careful when acting in Wangqing on this day. Although you have good martial arts skills, if you offend the powerful, it will be very troublesome." Jiang Wanqiu drank all the wine in his glass. Wangsheng asked, "Big brother, do you often encounter obstacles when investigating cases because of this?" "Yeah." Jiang Wanqiu sighed, "Especially our Ministry of Justice and the City Guard are all acting under orders. When investigating cases, do we always find some heirs of powerful figures, offending people? After offending someone, for the mildest, they will be beaten severely, threatened with intimidation, and for the worst, they will be gone." Jiang Wanqiu thought for a moment and said, "I have 4 colleagues who were still investigating cases at work the day before, but went missing the next day." "Big brother, you need to be careful," Jiang Wangsheng said, sweating coldly from behind. "Don't worry." Jiang Wanqiu patted Wang Sheng, our father is a military minister and has a close relationship with the old general. No one dares to touch me. However, during the investigation, I was also afraid of my hands and feet. Jiang Wanqiu smiled bitterly. I was worried that because I investigated the case, I would set up a political enemy for my father, which would be too unfilial. This Jiang Wanqing said, my father is honest and upright. If I knew you were investigating for justice and truth, even if he had more enemies, I wouldn't blame you. I know, but my father doesn't blame me. I feel guilty myself. Jiang Wanqiu pounded her feet and chest. The moonlight gradually blurs. Jiang Wanqiu drank to his heart and shouted, the current struggle is really fierce. Good brother, you grew up in Shu and have a pure and virtuous character. You must not be contaminated by them. Don't you know me yet? Out of the mud without staining, washing the clear ripples without being demonic. Jiang Wanqiu drank a few glasses of strong liquor, her cheeks blushed, her voice raised, as if a dream was not a dream. Big brother, since the Ministry of Justice is so dangerous, why don't you stay at the Ministry of War? Our father is working in the Ministry of War, and what about me? I definitely can't. I can't let them say that the Ministry of War belongs to the Jiang family, that's why I went to the Ministry of Justice. Jiang Wanqiu continued to complain, you and I, big brother, look at the scenery. There are no less than 10 disciples and friends around me, but I am in the Ministry of Justice and just a runner and catcher. Every time we cooperate with Dali Temple, they look down on us, find us obstructing and like to take credit. Our colleagues around us are also a group of smiling tigers. Good little brother, listen to my advice, don't persist in being an official. Your martial arts are so good, why can't you? Jiang Konglu arrived at the courtyard of Wanqiu at an unknown time and asked a few people to carry Jiang Wanqiu back to his bedroom, so that Wang Sheng could also go to bed early. The courtyard was lonely, with only 4 maids standing in front of the door, waiting for orders. Jiang Wansheng drank a lot of wine, his face burning, and he stared straight at the maids without moving his gaze for a while. Suddenly, a sound came from the courtyard wall, and a woman peered into it to observe. It was Leng Suxian who came. Jiang Wansheng said, you all go down. I don't need anyone to serve me here. Yes. Leng Suxian entered the courtyard and presented 2 scrolls, saying, young master, the once every 10 years heaven and earth double list has been compiled and can be notified to the world at any time. In addition, the master has given his last wish to reopen the top of the heaven list. The top ranking. Is it the ranking of the innate master? Exactly. Why was it banned before? The owner is unwilling to participate in the ranking, so there is always controversy about being the world's number 1. But now, with the skill of the young master, he should be the world's number 1. Should we announce it to the world? Jiang Wansheng leaned against the pillar and pondered, I can't expose it, but I should also give them some pressure. The first letter is Yangtze River. Yes. Opening the heavenly list, Leng Suxian wrote the gilded word Yangtze River at the top of the list. Top 2 on the list. Marshal Saint Mu Mingkong, sword-armored old man, eternal sky. Top 3 on the list. Spear fairy Tong Yuan, blade god Yen Jiufeng, and ox-riding Taoist. Top 4 on the list. Confucian saint, wine and meat Buddha, and heavenly demon girl. Jiang Wansheng set his gaze on the list of the top 39th rank experts in the world's combat power. There is a new ranking for Tianbang this year, Jiang Wansheng said. Leng Suxian said, yes, we have added the list of literary officials and famous generals. Chen Bangzhou, the Prime Minister of Western Chu, ranked first on the list of civil officials. First place on the list of famous generals, Gu Beitang from the north, second place on the list of famous generals, Yang Shao from the Western Chu. Third place on the list of famous generals, fourth place on the list of famous generals from the north, and Confucian generals from the southern Tang. Jiang Wangxing smacked his tongue and said, "The old general hasn't been wearing armor for so many years, yet he still ranks second." General Yang Shao once rode alone to protect his lord and fought a bloody battle with 10,000 soldiers. Looking at large-scale battles, few people could match him. This Confucian general from the southern Tang dynasty surprisingly ranked on both the list of civil officials and the list of famous generals. Leng Suxian reminded, he is still a 9th-rank expert who almost made it to the list of outstanding figures. Jiang Wangxing fell into contemplation and said, "This person should not be underestimated." Jiang Wangxing glanced at the list roughly and asked, "How do you judge the martial arts strength of these people? Especially since they are born in this world, they probably don't compete much." Leng Suxian said, "There are 100 military officials in Tianji Pavilion who can make appropriate judgments. If anyone refuses, they can also challenge and inform the world. 1 year later, the double rankings of heaven and earth will be adjusted." Donghai, Mustard City. A burly old man with white hair stood with his hands behind his back, bathed in the majestic wind. When someone told him to reopen the crown list, he frowned and said, "The number 1 in the world has appeared. I live in this city, watching the waves of the sea day by day. It's because I have the number 1 spot in the world." After the announcement of the list, he frowned and muttered to himself, "Yangtze River." He looked up at the stars in the sky, eagerly anticipating. West Chu Spring and Autumn Sword House. An old man opened his eyes, as deep as the sea, and was surprised to hear that the championship list had reopened. After hearing that it was the top in the world, he showed a playful expression. Mu Mingkong is not the best in the world. In the mountains and fields a man sat on the body of a white ape, carrying a long stick on his shoulder, and murmured, "Changjiang. Jin Gong, go and ask the Tianji Pavilion who this Changjiang is." Bailey the robust middle-aged man roared up to the sky, "Who is the Yangtze River?" Southern Tang Dynasty. In the 10,000-volume book, the Confucian sage couldn't help but smile when he heard the 2 words, Yangtze River. The distant shadow of a solitary sail in the blue sky is exhausted, only the flow of the Yangtze River in the sky can be seen. Overnight, the world was shocked, and the 9th innate expert appeared, and as soon as he appeared, it allowed Tianji Pavilion to reopen the top list and steadily win the top spot in the world. For a moment it was widely known that the threshold of Tianji Pavilion had been stepped on, and 2 innate masters came to ask who the Yangtze River was. Leng Suxian and the other officials of the Tianji Pavilion were helpless and spoke, "The river flows beyond heaven and earth, and the mountains are boundless." Yang Shao saw the word Yangtze River, and a young man appeared in front of him. He immediately smiled and shook his head, "So young, how could it be? But with his age and strength, why doesn't the Liangyu list in the Earth list see his name? Is it because he's just starting out and the Tianji Pavilion hasn't had a chance to know?" Yang Shao ordered, "Famous teachers lead to great disciples. Jiang Wangxing's master must be a well-known figure in Shu. Could you please go on a long journey and inquire about it?" "Yes, General." The 9th-rank warrior, who was personally protected, took orders and left. End of this chapter. Chapter 6, Wind, Flower, Snow, and Moon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6, Wind, Flower, Snow, and Moon. Outside the Jiang mansion, Jiang Wanqiu led several confidants. Jiang Wangxing and Shi Chenyang stood side by side behind his father Jiang Konglu. Jiang Wanqiu whispered, "Our father played another string a few years ago, Shui Minglan. Be careful, I usually avoid her." "Why?" "After all, it's our stepmother. Let's call her aunt." "It's too natural, let's call her mother. It feels strange." Jiang Wangxing stared at the eager Jiang Konglu and muttered, "My mother passed away due to difficult childbirth, big brother. Your mother passed away due to tuberculosis. Is our father suppressing women?" Jiang Konglu turned around and glanced at Jiang Wangxing. Jiang Wangxing closed his mouth and lowered his head. Jiang Wangxing whispered, "Since that's the case, let's call our aunt in the future and get closer to our stepmother, otherwise she will feel isolated. My dear brother, this statement makes sense. The carriage arrived, several attendants lowered the wooden steps, and a beautiful maid helped the lady out. Jiang Wangsheng's mouth grew slightly larger and he said, "Good guy, our father's precious sword is not old." Xue Minglan looked only in her early 30s, with actions like a weak willow supporting the wind, tears streaming down her face, and a lingering aura. Jiang Kongliu's expectation in his eyes turned into worry, and he quickly stepped forward to help, saying, "Madam, what did the divine doctor say when you went to see a doctor in Yingdu?" Xue Minglan gently shook her head and said, "I didn't get anything. I just prescribed a few new medications and after taking them for a while, my body improved." Xue Minglan turned her gaze to the two brothers. "Auntie. Mother. Jiang Wanqiu. This is different from what was agreed upon." Jiang Wangsheng leaned over to Xue Minglan's side, reached out to pulse, and the faint smile on his face restrained. Xue Minglan smiled and asked, "Sheng, what have you found?" Jiang Wangsheng said, "People have 8 unique meridians, but my mother was born without one." "That's right," Jiang Kong said, "over the years, I have even visited several experts on the Tianbang list to explore their illnesses, and all of them have come to this conclusion. The only way is to have a light diet, exercise less and lie down more, and maintain a calm mindset." Jiang Wangsheng smiled lightly and held on to Xue Minglan's wrist, his internal breath flowing incessantly through her body. He unloaded her domineering power, took her softness, and poured it into her body. Xue Minglan was stunned for a moment, her tired body gaining some vitality, and she also smiled at Wangsheng. Everyone enters the mansion. Shi Chenyang grabbed Wangsheng and asked, "Did you lose your mother's internal strength just now?" "Yes, I didn't expect you to be quite sensitive." Jiang Wangsheng couldn't help but look up to him a bit. "She was born with a deficiency in her pulse, and she has some of my internal power to protect her body, which is enough to temporarily replace the missing pulse." Shi Chenyang confidently said, "You have strong internal skills, but when you accumulate energy, your internal energy dissipates, which can be detected by sharp warriors. Not to mention me." Jiang Wangsheng looked at him helplessly and said, "Speak as you please, don't boast about your personal life." Shi Chenyang pondered for a moment and asked, "I have almost finished practicing my internal skills. Young master, could you tell me your insights when you first broke through the 8th grade?" Jiang Wangsheng said honestly, "Just sneak a peek, I'll be in 8th grade." Shi Chenyang. "Young master, Mr. Jiang, madam has already gone in. Are you still going in?" Jiang Wangsheng said, "My mother has returned, how can she be empty-handed? You come with me to buy something." "Okay." Not long after Shi Chenyang gazed at a 9-story tall building in front of him, lost in thought. He looked at Jiang Wangsheng with a smile on his face and questioned, "Do you know where this is?" "Chaotian Palace." "What else?" Shi Chenyang continued to ask. "What else is there?" Shi Chenyang exclaimed in a loud voice, "It's still a place full of wind and moon all over the world, and in front of me is the largest brothel in the world." Jiang Wangsheng sighed lightly and said, "Poor thing, I only witnessed my true face today." Shi Chenyang frowned and said, "With your esteemed status and excellent martial arts skills, why come here to be impure?" The next moment, he realized, "I understand. You're trying to conceal your talents and avoid others' jealousy." Jiang Wangsheng thought to himself that there were too many scenes for this person, but it could also be a solution. "Alas, you've hidden it for so long and discovered it," Jiang Wangsheng said earnestly. "Do you have a family?" Wangsheng asked. "Unmarried." "Excellent." Jiang Wangsheng pulled Shi Chenyang and said, "Let's go together. Whoever you like will tell me that I, Mr. Jiang, will pay for your expenses tonight." Shi Chenyang hesitated and said, "It's not quite appropriate. After all, you are the son of the Minister of War, impressive." Jiang Wangsheng directly covered his mouth and whispered, "Keep it down, do you want us all exposed?" From now on, your name is Stone, and my name is Jiang Lu. Can this cover up the past? What can be known will always be known, let those who cannot know not know. It makes sense. Stepping into it, the floor is paved with white jade, embedded with gold beads, pearl curtains, and fan jean as pillars. 9 layers lead to the heavens, with joy resembling immortals, hence the name Shengtian Palace. The steward of the Shengtian Palace welcomed him and bowed with an arched hand, excitedly saying, I have seen you, young master. Jiang Wangsheng was just about to answer. A young master passed by him and helped up the steward. This person is dressed in brocade, gently shaking a folding fan, with 6 swordsmen following closely behind. Shi Chenyang reminded, this person is Wen Qingfeng, the son of Wen Shuehan, the minister of personnel. He is just like you. What's wrong with me? I'm a gentleman and a young ranger. Can anyone compare me to anyone? The sound was neither loud nor small, just right in his ear. The manager's smile suddenly froze and he secretly observed Wen Qingfeng. Wen Qingfeng sneered and unfolded his folding fan, gazing at the mountains and rivers above. With a gentle movement, the fragrance of sandalwood entered his nose and he said, fortunately, there is a fan, otherwise I would have been suffocated by the smell of the countryside. The two of them looked at each other. Jiang Wangsheng, dressed in a disheveled green shirt, pointed at Shi Chenyang, who was wearing a dark coat of paint, and said, he curses you. Shi Chenyang. Wen Qingfeng pointed his fan at the two of them and said, Shengtian Palace is a place for celebrities. It's not something that Jianghu thugs like you can join in the fun. It's better to go wherever you come from. Shi Chenyang took a step and was about to draw a sword when he was stopped by Jiang Wangsheng. It's better to have fewer things than more. Don't pay attention to him. Jiang Wangsheng carefully examined the structure of the Shengtian Palace inside. This place is really much better than the brothels in Shu. Wen Qingfeng sneered and said, you are indeed a country bumpkin. The steward didn't want the situation to escalate and walked towards the two of them, whispering, this is the young master of the Ministry of Personnel, not someone you can afford to offend. Please leave quickly, otherwise. She glanced at the 6 enthusiastic thugs beside Wen Qingfeng. Jiang Wangsheng introduced, my brother's martial arts are not to be underestimated. It's not a big deal to have 1 enemy against 6. Wen Xiefeng's hand slowly lifted, and the 6 thugs drew out their weapons. Everyone began to mock. In the inherent understanding of these laymen, 6 people hitting 1 person can be said to have hands. But some warriors noticed the aura emanating from Shi Chenyang's body and were secretly shocked. They looked at him jokingly, hoping to see this arrogant young master embarrass themselves. Shi Chenyang sneered, 5 4th grades, 1 5th grade, it's not worth mentioning. Let me. But after all, this is not a place for fighting, and it's not good or bad for your business. Jiang Wangsheng raised his hand to stop Shi Chenyang from taking action. The steward was overjoyed and was about to take Wen Qingfeng away when a piercing voice shattered her imagination. No way. Today, we must beat both of them up. Wen Qingfeng was furious. Yes, young master. 6 thugs sharpened their knives and grinned fiercely as they approached, surrounding the two in groups. Wen Qingfeng shook his fan arrogantly and said, kneel down and apologize, kowtow a few heads, make me feel happy, just spare your life. But he must stay. The young master is right, let him go. Shi Chenyang furrowed his brow and pulled out his precious sword from his waist, with a cold and piercing light. The only 5th grade martial artist among the 6 saw this and his eyes lit up. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said, young master Dao, I. Wen Qingfeng glanced at him and said, discard his hands, his knife is yours. Then he turned around, too lazy to watch this rude brawl. Yes. Bang bang bang, Wen Qingfeng had already imagined the two of them looking disheveled and said leisurely, throw it out. One hand pressed on Wen Qingfeng's shoulder. Bold. Wen Qingfeng was slightly angry, shrugged off his hand, and turned around to scold, only to see the face of Shengtian. The arrogant young master immediately turned pale and noticed 6 unconscious thugs on the ground. "Do you dare to hit me?" Wen Qingfeng breathed a sigh of relief. "I am the son of the Minister of Personnel. If you hit me, my father will definitely not let you go." Speaking of this, he straightened his waist and pointed his finger at Shengtian's chest. "Are you good at hitting?" "You know how to hit, it's useless. You need to have power and background to come out and mix." Shengtian looked at Wang Sheng and sought his opinion. Jiang Wangsheng followed his tone and said, "Throw it out. You dare." A body drew a perfect arc in the air, and in the next moment, Wen Qingfeng had already fallen to the entrance of Tian Palace. The steward stared blankly, and she dared not participate. One person has a huge background, while the other is highly skilled in martial arts. As the one in charge, no one can afford to offend her. Jiang Wangsheng looked at Wen Qingfeng, who kept shouting, "Pain," outside, and said, "You go take care of him first." The steward chuckled and hurriedly ran out, helping him in again to rest. "Wait, my father won't let you go." Shengtian frowned and asked. His father is a Shangshu, 1 level higher than Lord Zhang's official position. Would it be a bit troublesome? What era is it? A big official doesn't necessarily mean a big power. A woman walked up step by step and said, "My lord Songyu, how do you call me?" "My name is Jiang Lu, and this brother is Shi. The 2 of us have heard of the famous name of Tian Palace and are here to visit." How can a servant in Tian Palace ask guests their names randomly? She just wanted to explore the details. If someone came from behind Wen Qingfeng, there would be some grievances and debts, and the Tian Palace would have an explanation. Songyu bowed and said, "May I introduce you to you?" Jiang Lu took out a silver bill and handed it to Songyu, saying, "Please, miss." Songyu pursed her lips and said, "There are many girls here, each with unique skills. They will definitely satisfy the preferences of the 2 young masters." Shengtian looked at the sword in his hand and smiled disdainfully. Songyu was full of confidence and said, "The girls on the 1st floor are good at singing and dancing. The girls on the 2nd floor are good at cooking, and there are also dozens of famous chefs who serve as food. The girls on the 3rd floor are good at drinking and making wine. The girls on the 4th floor are skilled in blending incense and making cigarettes, as recorded in the historical records. The girls on the 5th floor are skilled in playing qin, chess, calligraphy, and painting. The girls on the 6th floor are skilled in punching, kicking, and internal skills, and the girls on the 7th floor are skilled in knives, guns, and sticks. This is the 8th floor, Songyu explained with a mysterious smile. The 8th floor is the residence of the flower leader in my Tian Palace. We only meet by chance and spend the spring night together. The 9th floor is used to serve important people. Jiang Wangsheng asked, "Will even big shots come here?" "Young master, I don't know." Songyu smiled shyly. The Tian Palace is renowned throughout the world, and this place is also the headquarters of the Tian Palace. It was once favored by the former emperor and has the qualification to prepare high-end banquets. Shengtian said, "Young master, the Tian Palace is qualified to hold official banquets. At that time, guests will be invited behind closed doors, and all 9 floors will be used for banquets." Jiang Wangsheng muttered to himself, there was an order from the previous emperor, so the Tian Palace was able to build the 9th layer. 9 is the ultimate number. No wonder. The young master guessed well. On the 9th floor, only members of the royal family and His Majesty's confidants were present, and we were even quite wary of sweeping. Suddenly, 100 flowers fell and red sleeves danced. On the 8th floor, there was a beautiful figure standing in front of the door, waiting for a distinguished guest. Songyu exclaimed excitedly, "Miss Mingyue, who is famous among the flower leaders. She has never received any guests before." Then he said with a deep meaning, "She is still a perfect body. Could you please bring the young master to the 8th floor for a chat? A man waiting on the 8th floor shouted loudly. Everyone was mixed in surprise and joy, and they all stretched out their necks to see the true face of Shengtian. Upon seeing this, Wen Qingfeng laughed heartily and strode towards the stars, clasping his fists in all directions, saying, "I've made concessions, everyone. My father is the Minister of Personnel, and I hope you can give me some face." End of this chapter. Chapter 7, Warm Fragrant Soft Jade. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7, Warm Fragrant Soft Jade. When Qingfeng walked past and looked at Jian Wangxing provocatively, rubbing his hands. Although I was harassed by Xiao Xiao, it's not in vain to have a spring night with Miss Shengtian. Jian Wangxing's expression remained unchanged and he said, "Miss Sangyu, I can't understand you talking so much." Yes, we're not used to being flashy, Shengtian agreed. "Since that's the case, I'll try layer by layer," Jian Wangxing said with righteous words. Sang Yu's movements were momentarily delayed. He thought he was honest and innocent, but he didn't expect to harbor hidden evil intentions. Shengtian was also choked by these words. When Qingfeng climbed to the 8th floor, panting heavily. He supported the pillar, unable to suppress his ecstasy, and grinned his head, staring straight at the woman leaning against the door. "Miss Shengtian." When Qingfeng called out in a low voice. "Young master, please." The young girl is charming, with a deep breath of orchids. She is draped in a bright red veil, reflecting charming lines, and her breasts are even faintly visible. Even though Wen Qingfeng had seen many stunning beauties, he couldn't help but drool. The girl reached out her delicate jade hand and grabbed Wen Qingfeng. Wen Qingfeng couldn't help but moan, as if he had grabbed onto his heart and liver. The door was gently pushed open by the girl, and her arm blocked Wen Qingfeng's neck, pressing her whole body against him. When Qingfeng swallowed his saliva, his heart full of joy, and his body straightened up. He held the young girl in his arms and walked into the room. He placed the girl on the bed, looked at her delicate cheeks, and reached out to gently caress her. Several silver needles came from behind and landed on his back together. When Qingfeng's body paused, his consciousness instantly dissipated, and before he could fall to the ground, a needle followed closely and went straight into the back of his head. Bang! The silver needle pierced through the wooden wall, with a faint hint of blood. A woman wearing a veil appeared and flipped over his body, her face instantly changing. "Kill the wrong person." Jian Wangxing's large handful of broken silver made the girls on the first floor compete with each other and show off. Various colors of clothing, with a faint fragrance filling his sleeves, swept over Jian Wangxing's body, captivating him. Shengtian's face remained unchanged, only looking silently at Jian Wangxing, who was chatting and laughing with the girls. Jian Wangxing grabbed their soft jade hands and smiled as he made up some stories about wandering the rivers and lakes and acting chivalrous and righteous. After a while, Wangxing reluctantly walked out and climbed to the 2nd floor. Shengtian said, "The food in Chaotian Palace is a masterpiece. How about it? I'm not interested in these external objects, 3rd level." Shengtian. "Please go upstairs and talk." On the 8th floor, a man shouted. "Miss Shengtian, didn't the young master of the Minister of Personnel go? What's going on? Miss Shengtian needs 2 people, right? It must be that the young master of the Shangshu is physically weak. Spending all day indulging in extravagance and drinking is normal, but it's too embarrassing, isn't it?" Jian Wangxing looked at the 8th floor in confusion. Sang Yu arrived late and said, "Jiang Gongzi, Miss Shengtian just wanted you to have a conversation," but when Gongzi misunderstood. "Call me." Shengtian said, "Maybe I have a crush on you." "You," Jian Wangxing paused, "are really accurate in judging people. Miss Sangyu, this brother's expenses will be credited to my account." Shengtian originally wanted to evade. "But me. Don't pretend, when Miss Sangyu said that the girl on the 7th floor could play with a knife, your eyes changed. They're all men, I understand. Jiang Wangxing leaped up the stairs with a graceful and unrestrained demeanor. Everyone couldn't help but exclaim, good likeness skills. 2 young girls stood in front of the door, one wearing a crimson veil, half covering her crispy chest, and landing on her thighs. Her jade lotus-like arms were exposed, gently teasing her in an enticing posture. Jiang Wangxing looked at another girl again, in a light purple long dress with a beautiful appearance, and a pair of phoenix eyes were constantly scrutinizing him. The girl in red rushed towards Wangxing, but pounced in the air. Wangxing walked towards the girl in purple. Miss Shermingyue, he asked. Although the girl in purple was surprised, she nodded and said, this is my maid, Yuqing. Yuqing has already gathered her clothes and returned to normal. Please. Jiang Wangxing stepped into it and said directly, why did you call me up? The young master has exceptional martial arts skills and an almost immortal temperament. The young woman admires him deeply, so she invites him to come up for a talk. Shermingyue bowed and bowed. Hello taste. Yuqing held the tea with her jade hands, and the fragrance seeped in. She placed it in a cup and poured it with hot water. Tea stretches out its body with a delicious flavor, with a hint of youthful fragrance in its clear air, giving it a unique flavor. Young master, please. Shermingyue personally served tea, her eyes as charming as silk. Jiang Wangxing took the tea cup, and Shermingyue's hand wrapped around his neck, almost hanging from him. Wangxing sipped his tea, praising it endlessly. Young master, are you so shy? Shermingyue murmured in Jiang Wangxing's ear, and a warm aroma flowed around his neck. Yuqing's eyes were as watery as water, and I couldn't help but pity her. Isn't the tea brewed by me tasty? How could you say that? Jiang Wangxing scraped her sunny nose and supported her chin, admiring her diverse charm. Subsequently, Jiang Wangxing drank the tea from the cup in one gulp. The 2 women showed a cunning expression at the same time. Jiang Wangxing rubbed his hands on his 2 daughters, leaving them to be played with for a quarter of an hour. Yuqing and Shermingyue looked at each other. What's going on? Has the poison expired? Shermingyue reached out to grab another teacup and was about to taste tea when Jiang Wangxing grabbed her jade hand and said, Miss, how many flower leaders do you have in Chaotian Palace? Shermingyue smiled brightly and said, Young master, do you want to take all of them? Do you really have this intention? I wonder if it could be completed overnight. Shermingyue hugged him and said, that young master is beyond his means. Are you looking down on me? Jiang Wangxing directly held down Shermingyue and pressed her under his body. Young master, don't worry. Yuqing said anxiously. Yes, on this bench, it's inevitable that you won't have all the fun. Shermingyue cleared the way for Yuqing. I understand, move, move. Jiang Wangxing stood up. Shermingyue touched her long sleeve, took out a silver needle, took it out, and popped it out. Jiang Wangxing bent down, picked up a bag of tea, and asked, this tea has a fragrant aroma all over. I don't know what it is. I'll buy some to go to the mansion later. The 100-year-old De Hongpo, produced in the southern Tang dynasty, Yuqing hurriedly said, then carefully glanced at the silver needle on the wall. Jiang Wangxing sighed. As Shermingyue took the needle, she smiled and asked, why is the young master sighing? The De Hongpo is certainly good, but without this beauty's personal soaking, it naturally lacks some flavor. Jiang Wangxing turned his back. Shermingyue once again injected. Jiang Wangxing bent down again and hugged Yuqing. Yuqing Zhanghuang was at a loss, but Shermingyue gave her a look and asked her to hold her still. Jiang Wangxing threw the tempting Yuqing onto the bed, turned around and grabbed Shermingyue's disobedient hands, pressing her against the wall. Shermingyue squeezed out a smile and said, Young master, are you so eager? Of course it's urgent. A tempting apple, a noble grape. I'm in the prime of my life, how can I bear it? Jiang Wangxing's fingers ran over her soft and long hair. Shi Mingyue frowned and muttered inwardly, why is his internal strength so strong? I can't break free. Yu Qing's hand quietly approached the jade pillow and slowly drew out a short sword, her eyes becoming fierce. No matter how Shi Mingyue tried to stop her with her eyes, she could do nothing. Pa, Jiang Wangxing asked Shi Mingyue to face the wall and turn her back towards him, holding on to Yu Qing's hand with one hand and holding onto the short sword with the other. Thoroughly tearing apart his face without reservation, Yu Qing made a series of more than 10 moves, with fists, feet, swords, and legs intertwined. Wang Xing remained motionless and made them with one hand. Flipping his hand, his internal strength surged and he hit it against the wall. Jiang Wangxing threw Shi Mingyue on the bed and asked, who sent you to kill me? The two women looked at each other, filled with helplessness. Don't say it. I can guess without saying it. Wang Xing's hand pressed on Shi Mingyue's back and gradually moved down. Shi Mingyue closed her eyes helplessly. There is a woman from Bailey who has a 9th grade martial arts skill and exceptional internal power. She has entered the list of outstanding figures with her short sword technique and flying needle technique. She is your master, right? The two women trembled and looked at the young man in front of them in terror. Jiang Wangxing enjoyed the softness and warmth in his hands while saying, Bailey assassin hides Tianwang city. What do you think will happen to you? Although the Western Chu could not defeat Bailey in a full-scale war, it was still easy to kill you too. Jiang Wangxing snatched the short sword and lightly brushed it across their faces. Ling Qi, with 3,000 swords, what do you think it would be like? Don't be alarmist. Prime Minister Chen Bangzhou abolished the capital punishment of Western Chu more than a decade ago, and the only death penalty was poisoning. Don't you know that? Shouted Yu Qing. That's for our own people in the Western Chu, 2 stunning women from the north, bound in both hands and thrown into the military camp. What will happen in a day? Jiang Wangxing whispered in their ears. Dirty. Despicable. You must die easily. Yu Qing shouted. The 2 personal disciples of the 9-rank martial arts master from Bailey have turned into withered flowers and fallen willows, and they are waving their flags in front of the battle, TSK TSK. Keep the last cut and let you watch as the Bailey army is defeated by my Western Chu army. Tell me about that. Shi Mingyue angrily said, Jiang Wangxing, you demon. Yo, you know me. Jiang Wangxing said, if you could kill someone with your identity, you should be from the palace. Let me guess, the eldest prince is indecisive and has the benevolence and righteousness of the previous emperor, not him. The 3rd prince, with his dog's lust, his horse's sound, and no ambition, wouldn't be him. The 4th prince enjoys practicing martial arts and is upright, let alone him. Then there's only the 2nd prince, with ruthless methods and decisive execution. Jiang Wangxing's attack was as swift as lightning, and his internal breathing shattered his body, hitting their acupoints, making them unable to move at all. The 2 women's eyes were shocked. Jiang Wangxing reached into their mouths to see if there was any poison hidden, and indeed pulled out 2 black small balls. If the assassination fails, with the personality of the 2nd prince, I will definitely kill you and silence you, Jiang Wangxing whispered. That's better than helping you, isn't it? Shi Mingyue stared at him and said, after all, we are disciples of the heavenly list experts. Killing us means an additional enemy of the heavenly list 9th grade. He's not a fool. Do you admit to being the 2nd prince? When did I admit it? Shi Mingyue sneered, you aristocratic sons always seem frivolous, but in reality, you are pure and compassionate. Whatever you say, what's the point? You're right, Jiang Wangxing glanced at Yu Qing next to him and continued, but I'm not quite like them. I grew up in Shu since childhood and have never seen the world before. The rule of Chaotian Palace is that if you have the chance to meet a flower queen, you can enjoy the pleasure of fish and water. If one day someone finds out that you are still a virgin, wouldn't it be very detrimental to my reputation? Jiang Wangxing grinned. Both Yuqing and Shimingya's faces changed. I was careless. No flashing. Next, what's going on? The spring cold bestows a bath in the Huaqing pool, while the hot spring water slides and cleanses the condensed fat. When the attendant helped up the delicate and powerless child, it was the time to receive new blessings. End of this chapter. Chapter 8, The Strange Women of Western Chu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8, The Strange Women of Western Chu. Jiang Kongliu's expression was uncertain, and upon hearing about his son's absurdity, he sighed helplessly. A guest spoke up, Sir, the second young master is still young and mischievous, which is human nature. But if he beats Wen Shuihan's son, I'm afraid. This person is the only strategist of Jiang Konglu, named Wu Qi, skilled in the art of vertical and horizontal movement. Jiang Konglu stretched lazily and said, although he has exceptional martial arts skills, it is difficult to achieve great things by indulging in promiscuity. As for the son of the Minister of Personnel, if he were to be beaten, he would be beaten. Upon hearing these words, Wu Qi was full of doubts, with a glint in his eyes, pondering something. How has the matter of Sheng'er's martial arts been handled? We have tried our best to eliminate the traces and have released the message that those two thieves have already been seriously injured and happen to be picked up by the second young master. Jiang Konglu nodded and said, That's great. Taking advantage of Sheng'er's mischief these days and keeping our people hidden, I have a premonition that something big will happen. So, sir, did you let the second young master come back? This is one of them, and the second is to keep him by my side, protect him, so that we can achieve great things, Jiang Konglu said softly. Spending time and drinking is not necessarily a good thing. Jiang Konglu stood up. Sir, what does this mean? Wu Qi was stunned. You haven't seen him before, Jiang Konglu smiled. This child is very intelligent and has a deep understanding of the city, but he is naturally free and doesn't want to fall into the dust net. Therefore, he won't turn against each other for this foundation and late autumn. Wu Qi asked, Sir, what if second young master wants a foundation? Jiang Konglu sneered, survival of the fittest is determined by the law of heaven. The streets flow endlessly, with people coming and going. The sound was hoarse and chaotic. Oh, with such a big battle, who is this? Jiang Wangxing couldn't help but say. A black-clad horse roared past, followed closely by 5 or 6 men. Shengtian glanced roughly and said, Her name is Huang Mingjue. She is the beloved daughter of the Minister of Rites, Huang Yingjun, and a member of the Dali Temple. Is she a woman? Wang Xing exclaimed in surprise, carefully examining her back. I really can't tell. In theory, women should be gentle and virtuous, diligent and frugal in managing their families. However, this one is different. She has been wielding swords and guns since childhood and has a good talent. Later, she joined the Spring and Autumn Sword House and became the closed-door disciple of the Sword Armor Elder. Shengtian continued to introduce, she is already 20.4 years old this year, and a woman of the same age has already married and had children. However, she chose to live in seclusion at the Dali Temple and became addicted to handling cases. Jiang Wangxing looked at him strangely and said, Why do you know them so well? You still care about their marriage. It's not that I care, it's known throughout the city. Shengtian paused and said, Lord Shangshu once told her several marriages, but they were all rejected. The most important thing is that when we come to meet, the man will always be severely injured by her. So fierce. Once, Lord Shangshu insisted on marrying him off. On the day of her wedding, she wore a white dress, wielded a sword, and entered the hall. In front of everyone's eyes, she retired, causing a storm in the city. Jiang Wangxing suddenly became interested and said, This is also a strange person. She is the beloved disciple of the Sword Armor Elder. In the territory of Western Chu, she is the only innate master willing to serve, and even His Majesty does not want to offend her. Jiang Wangxing suddenly remembered and said, There is a popular saying that goes. Women in the world only marry Western Chu. That's right. Back then, Prime Minister Chen abolished women's foot binding. Among the 3 obediences and 4 virtues, only unmarried parents were left behind. He advocated for freedom of marriage and prohibited parents from taking responsibility. The Empress Dowager, who is now known as the Empress Dowager, once said, "I, a woman of Western Chu, regardless of her status, can wear a phoenix crown and a rosy robe when marrying into a woman." No wonder she dares to be so reckless, Jiang Wangxing muttered to himself. Speaking of which, where did you get the jade flute? Asked Shengtian. I found someone to buy a spring water jade flute. I don't like to hold a sword, can't I always hold a bamboo stick everywhere? Using a flute as a sword is extremely elegant, Jiang Wangxing said confidently. There's a lot of excitement ahead, hurry up, he continued. In front of the Wenfu gate, servants dressed in mourning welcomed the people of Dali Temple. Shengtian was full of doubts and said, judging from the specifications of this mansion, it should be the residence of Wen Shuehan, the Minister of Personnel. Why did people come to Dali Temple to attend a funeral? Jiang Wangxing pulled him and said, what's the matter with him? Take a closer look. In the crowd, the black clothes that had just galloped were in the center. Wearing a black powerful suit, wearing a long sword on the waist, with icy skin and jade bones, exuding a heroic and majestic demeanor between the eyebrows, exuding a dignified demeanor that is awe-inspiring and unappealing to look directly at. A strong man wiped his tears and dared not face the woman directly. He only lowered his head and snorted, our young master disappeared after reaching the 8th floor. It must have been those shameless sluts from the Chaotian Palace. Upon hearing that he was indiscriminate, Huang Mengjue exclaimed that women were shameless and couldn't help but clench their long swords. Does he usually have conflicts with people? Often. On that day, the young master had a conflict with a gangster in the martial arts world and a swordsman. Jiang Wangxing and Shengtian just squeezed to the front, and upon hearing this, they froze. The two looked at each other, understood the meaning, turned around, and were about to leave. Someone exclaimed, it's just the two of them. Huang Mengjue made a swift move, his palm like a gust of wind. He pressed down on Wang Xing's shoulder, releasing his internal energy in drinking coquettishly, stop. Shengtian was about to draw his sword when he was stopped by Jiang Wangxing, reminding him, don't conflict with the people of Dali Temple. This female Xia, I am just a passerby. You can't bully me, a common person with a flat head, can you? Jiang Wangxing said innocently. Huang Mengjue sneered, why did you run away when he pointed at you just now? What are you saying? I suddenly have an urgent matter to leave, Jiang Wangxing said with reason and evidence. What urgent matter? Jiang Wangxing said seriously, my dog has given birth to a 3rd child. We are from the 8 groups of Dali Temple. Young Master Wen Qingfeng was killed, and this case is being handled by us. We hope you can cooperate with us. Yi Renmin. Shengtian looked jokingly at Jiang Wangxing, who was surrounded by groups. Let you watch the excitement. Hey, has it become lively? What about him? Jiang Wangxing pointed to Shengtian. Shengtian. Huang Mengjue asked, did you stay with him all day yesterday? Shengtian quickly set aside his relationship and said, he's on the 8th floor. I'm on the 7th floor, practicing swordsmanship with a few girls. If you don't believe me, you can go ask. What's your name? My name is Shengtian, he is his guard. At this moment, someone ran over and whispered a few words to Huang Mengjue. The woman in black looked at Jiang Wangxing with great interest and said, I know. Huang Mengjue drew his long sword, with a snow-white body adorned with several blood-colored gemstones. The cold air surged against Jiang Wangxing's chest. Son of the Minister of War, you are not an ordinary commoner. Jiang Wangxing looked at the sword and gently rubbed it with his hand. What are you doing? Huang Mengjue's eyes flickered with anger as he was about to chop it down. Jiang Wangxing flashed and said, the seventh most famous sword in the world is the Mingxing sword. Good eyesight. A person rushed over anxiously and whispered, Leader, the Minister of War holds a high position of power. Should we retreat first? Let's retreat first. Tomorrow, you and the people from Dali Temple will enter the residence of the Minister of War. Take the people directly. Huang Mengjue withdrew his sword. The cold words choked the person directly. Shi Chenyang, are you in Jiangkong Lu's mansion? Yes. You can leave now. Could you please tell Mr. Jiang that Prince Jiang Wangxing is suspected of killing Wen Qingfeng? We need to take him to Dali Temple for questioning. After receiving a signal from Jiang Wangxing, Shi Chenyang hurriedly left. One person reported, Leader, Shi Mingyue and her maid have already left for the north yesterday. Jiang Wangxing shrugged and said, Look, they have a guilty conscience. Hurry up and send someone to catch them. I'm going back to eat. The food in our Dali temple is also extremely delicious. Jiang Gongzi, come with us. Huang Mengjue stopped him with his sword scabbard. Wang Xing sighed and said, It's hard to indulge in a romantic relationship. Anyway, it's just a chance to have a meal. Do you have soup? I like spicy food. One person took out shackles and approached Wang Sheng. I'm going with you, so I don't need this anymore. Jiang Wangxing looked at Huang Mengjue. I'm just afraid you might run halfway, the person said fiercely. Don't worry, if I want to run, even 10 of you can't stop me. Jiang Wangxing said calmly, How can I walk? My lightness skills are not good, and my feet are slow. Huang Mengjue sneered, flipped over and mounted his horse, letting Jiang Wangxing sit behind her, with one end of the rope tied to him and the other end tied to her wrist. The woman in black let out a soft drink and galloped on her horse. Jiang Wangxing joked, Miss Huang, your equestrian skills are pretty good. Dali Temple, located in the south of the city, consists of 7 major locations, each performing its own duties. Due to Jiang Wangxing's identity, the interrogation location was changed to their group's reception hall. Jiang Wangxing took a sip of tea, crossed his legs, and said, Let's talk about it. Bang! Huang Mengjue slammed the table again, and Feng's eyes became angry. Jiang Wangxing. You need to figure out the situation, we are reviewing you. Okay. Jiang Wangxing looked at the man next to Huang Mengjue, Look at this brother who is full of heroic spirit. I don't know how to call him. The man proudly said, He Chenglong. A good name, at your age, TSK, it can make people like dragons and phoenixes in the future. I borrow your auspicious words, the man smiled. From the perspective that we are all part of the same journey, I will give you a piece of advice. Jiang Wangxing straightened his expression and said, Dragons and phoenixes among people should soar in the vast ocean and the sky, rather than being content in the pond. He Chenglong questioned, What do you mean? See how you understand it, Jiang Wangxing stretched lazily. And the backrest, this chair is really nice, it's a pity. Stop talking nonsense. Huang Mengjue briefly organized his thoughts and asked, Did you have a conflict with Wen Qingfeng yesterday? I guess so. Tell me more specifically. My guard said that he and I are the same number, and I must defend myself. How could a man suffer such humiliation? Jiang Wangxing stood up with great righteousness and clapped his table. Huang Mengjue coughed heavily. Wen Qingfeng despised us for being vulgar people, provoking us everywhere, and even hitting people. He used his hand first. But they were too useless to fight. I had them throw him out. He Chenglong looked at Wang Xing's clothes with a strange expression and said, The son of the Minister of War, how could someone recognize him as a vulgar person? When I go there, I must hide my identity. Besides, I don't like to wear fancy clothes, that's how he thinks. Huang Mengjue asked, And then what? He was just helped in when Miss Shi Mingyue said to ask the young master to go upstairs. He thought he was looking for him, so he stumbled up and I haven't seen him since. Later, I found out that she called me. Jiang Wangsheng gradually showed a proud expression. So you went up there? Yes. What is your relationship with Shengtian? Did she tell you about her escape? Jiang Wangsheng sighed and said, it's a pity that it's only one night. She definitely won't tell me when she runs away. He Chenglong couldn't help but sigh for a moment. Huang Mengjue cursed, it's vulgar. How can this statement be understood? Men are happy and women are in love, and you are willing to be with me. Why is there such a vulgar saying? However, the taste of bone and soul erosion in this place may be difficult for Captain Huang to understand for life. Huang Mengjue exclaimed, Jiang Wangsheng picked up the teacup and said leisurely, a flat horse, 2 rabbits on the ground, can you distinguish between male and female? End of this chapter. Chapter 9, 3-foot white silk. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9, 3-foot white silk outside Dali Temple. More than 10 royal cavalry led the way, followed by a 4-carriage sedan chair and 2 guards riding horses. The streets were lined with spies disguised as street vendors and pedestrians. The third prince is here, one person shouted loudly. Not long after, the Dali Temple was bustling with activity. A middle-aged man walked out and saw the director of the temple. Han Shang. Han Shang wore a dark official uniform, with a sword on his waist. His expression was as calm as an ancient well, and a hint of disgust flashed in his eyes. See your highness, everyone knelt down and saluted. Free of charge, get up quickly, get up quickly. The third prince walked out of the sedan chair with a smile on his face, scanning the crowd in front of him, feeling sorry for not seeing the person in his heart, and couldn't help but feel sad. The third prince continued to move forward. Han Shang frowned, took a step, and said in a deep voice, Your Highness, the former emperor has issued an order prohibiting royal children from entering the Dali Temple. I hope your highness does not make it difficult for us. The third prince stopped his steps and stared blankly at the Dali Temple, explaining, Mr. Han misunderstood. I didn't want to enter the temple. I just heard that Miss Mengjue has returned and came to see her. Han Shang remained calm and composed, Your Highness, Huang Mengjue is the leader of the 8th group and is currently interrogating the suspect. Lord Han, I dreamt that returning to the capital was because I had solved the case, wasn't it? The third prince's face smiled and his voice gradually sank. Your Highness is unaware that when Qing Feng, the son of Wen Xuehan, the Minister of Personnel, was killed yesterday. This case is now under the responsibility of Mengjue, Han Shang said sincerely. Surprisingly, this happened. But since I've come, why not let my dream come out and I'll see it and talk, said the third prince with a pleading tone. Han Shang hesitated for a moment and said, It depends on Mengjue's opinion. At this moment, Jiang Wangsheng was playing with the jade flute and walked out leisurely. He said to the third prince, Your Highness, Huang Mengjue asked me to bring you a message. She said she has something to attend to and cannot see you. The smiling third prince's face suddenly pulled down. Han Shang turned to look at him and said, Did your dream make you come out? Yes, after the review, I'll leave. Jiang Wangsheng stepped forward and patted Han Shang, The food at your Dali temple is really not good. Take the time to cook. Jiang Gongzi's words, Han will consider them, Han Shang said coldly. The third prince was stunned and said, Young Master Jiang, are you Jiang Wangsheng? Is my name so loud? Jiang Wangsheng rubbed his head in confusion. The third prince asked, Brother Jiang, have you ever solved this case? Han Shang said first, since Prince Jiang has come out, he must have cleared the suspicion. The perpetrator should be Master Shengtian, who has fled. Your Highness, rest assured that 6 departments have sent people north to apprehend the murderer. The third prince was overjoyed and said, Since that's the case, can I see a dream now? Han Shang smiled faintly and said, Your Highness, Mengjue is just my subordinate. In my spare time, I have no right to command her. Your Highness should visit Lord Huang, as this way there is a higher chance of meeting. This statement makes sense. Let's go to Huangfu. The third prince led his men and horses to leave. Han Shang put away his smile, his face cold and stern, and questioned, "Didn't you really kill Wen Qingfeng? Does he also deserve it?" Jiang Wangxing left a sentence and went home gracefully. At the entrance of Jiangfu, Shengtian reminded, "Mr. Jiang asked you to go to the study." After Wangxing entered the study, Jiang Konglu was wholeheartedly reading, with a person standing by his side as an attendant. Jiang Wanqiu is located below, looking as if nothing had happened. "I'm back," Jiang Konglu said while reading. Wen Qingfeng, did you actually kill me?" "No, it's not." Jiang Kong exiled the book and thought for a moment, "That's good, after all, he is a Shangshu. He can fight, but he must not kill." "Have you seen Huang Mingjue?" Jiang Wangxing nodded. "What do you think of her?" Jiang Wangxing hesitated for a moment and said, "According to rumors, she's quite interesting." Jiang Wanqiu whispered to her, "Huang Yingjun, Shangshu, and our father are close friends." "Oh, father, you and Mr. Huang are in the same party," Jiang Wangxing suddenly realized. Jiang Konglu slapped the book and said, "What kind of party?" "Everyone is a courtier. I have repeatedly said that if it is not conducive to unity, do not speak." Yes, I understand, I understand." Jiang Konglu pointed to the person beside him and introduced, "Wu Qi, my most trusted strategist." "Hello Uncle Wu. How are you, second young master?" Since Wangxing entered, he has been looking up and down, but he can't tell the depth. After a while, Jiang Konglu couldn't help but say, "Actually, our family has an engagement with Huang Mingjue. Divorce. You must quit." Jiang Wangxing stopped drinking without hesitation. Jiang Wanqiu nodded secretly and gave him a thumbs up. Jiang Konglu gave him a pale glance and said, "What's the big reaction?" He stood up, shook his sleeves, and said, "Our family is close friends with the Huang family. We have known each other since your grandfather's generation and made a marriage agreement. Unexpectedly, all the children we gave birth to are boys, which has continued into your generation. I still remember your grandfather, before his death, holding my hand and telling me that his only regret in his life was not being in laws with the Huang family." Jiang Konglu recalls the past with a melancholic expression on his face. Jiang Wangxing leaned back and said, "Is it really fake?" "Of course it's true," Jiang Konglu pointed to Jiang Wanqiu and said, "Originally, I wanted Wanqiu to complete their engagement, but..." Jiang Wanqiu took over the words and said, "However, as you were about to be born, the engagement did not specify who you were. I heard that she was going to Dali Temple, so I quickly went to the Ministry of Justice to avoid suspicion." Jiang Wangxing. Jiang Wangxing was almost incoherent. Didn't Huang Shangshu find several marriages for her? He must have forgotten about this matter and forced it to be sweet. "Let's leave this matter at that." Jiang Kong said, "We thought you were plagued by a serious illness and trapped in Shu for life. Later, your master wrote a letter claiming that your illness had healed, which allowed you to enter the capital." Jiang Wangxing. "Are you asking me to come to Beijing for this reason?" "That's right." Jiang Konglu nodded. "Hey guy, you're all playing tricks on me, one ring at a time." Wu Qi narrowed his eyes and couldn't help but admire the attendant. "No need." Jiang Wangxing waved his hand. "How come? You don't like her?" Jiang Konglu paced, "Your martial arts are stronger than hers, and you have an engagement with me. You are the future commander of the Xuanjia army. I think you are the most suitable. But she's not suitable for me." Jiang Konglu advised, "Emotion is not something that can be achieved overnight, it needs to be nurtured slowly. Besides, Huang Mingjue didn't know she was engaged. It's not about getting married immediately. I told you Uncle Huang that if either of you has a choice to get married, this agreement will be cancelled." That's good, Jiang Wangxing breathed a sigh of relief. Wu Qi smiled and said, if second young master can marry Miss Huang, it will naturally be a beautiful conversation that will benefit both of us. He, can your majesty rest assured that a minister and an attendant will marry Qin and Jean? Jiang Konglu smiled confidently and said, I won't bother you anymore. The old general and the old prime minister will come forward to mediate. In the future, we will find a way to make more contact between you two. Jiang Wangxing sought help from Jiang Wanqiu. Jiang Wanqiu chose to be wise and protect himself. But. Alright, this matter is settled and there's no need to discuss it again. Jiang Wangxing hesitated to speak. Master, Huang Mengjue, the daughter of the Shangshu of Huang Yingjun, is seeking an audience. Jiang Konglu smiled rather than smiled, shouting, please. Wang Sheng was pulling Jiang Wanqiu away when Jiang Konglu slowly said, Sheng, you stay. Jiang Wanqiu was overjoyed and said, Father, my child is leaving. Jiang Konglu signaled Wu Qi to retreat into the screen. Not long after, led by the maid, Huang Mengjue strode into the study. Say goodbye to Uncle Jiang. Dreaming, long time no see, the charm is even better than before. Uncle praised falsely. Huang Mengjue's gaze shifted and fell on Jiang Wangxing, who had a disdainful face beside him. Mengjue, you came this time for the case of Wen Qingfeng, Jiang Konglu asked. Exactly. 6 locations in Dali Temple have swept through the northern region, and no trace of Shi Mingyue has been seen. Huang Mengjue paused and glanced at Jiang Konglu, saying, I hope Jiang Gongzi can recall the details and see if there is any clue to her escape. Jiang Wangxing tisked and said, don't even the people of Dali Temple know how to turn their minds. Jiang Konglu coughed hard. How can I say this? Huang Mengjue was puzzled. How did those 2 people who broke into the imperial palace run? They went to southern Tang. Borrowed a waterway. Then returned to Bailey. Jiang Wangxing rolled his eyes and said, do you remember to eat or fight? I can't imagine how many people you've let go of in these years. Also, who said she went to Bailey? Huang Mengjue frowned and replied, according to my report, she met with the head of the Chaotian Palace before saying goodbye and claimed that she was going to Bailey. She said to go to Bailey, so she really went to Bailey. What if she still stays in Tianwang City? Jiang Konglu said in a deep voice, Sheng, speak well. The people in your group are quite simple. Personally, I suggest they go into business, so they won't lose weight. Jiang Wangxing sneered. Huang Mengjue sighed, I know now. Thank you very much for Mr. Zhang's cooperation. Jiang Konglu saw that she was about to leave and quickly said, Mengjue, why not let Shinger handle the case with you? Ah. Anyway, you haven't had much to do these past few days. There are so many girls waiting for me in Chaotian Palace. Jiang Wangxing stopped speaking when he saw Jiang Konglu's fierce gaze. Huang Mengjue was delighted and said, thank you very much, Mr. Jiang. In the harem, the birth mother of the 3rd prince. The palace of Empress Hui. Madam, 3rd prince has gone to Dali Temple again to find Huang Mengjue. Huifei tightly held the teacup and said, I really don't know what magic this little girl from the Huang family has that has captivated Mu Chuan for 2 years. Did he hit a wall again? Yes, the 3 halls went down to Dali Temple and were then deceived into going to Huang Shangshu's mansion. But some people say that Huang Mengjue went to the Ministry of War's Shilang's mansion. I really lose face with the royal family, Empress Hui snorted coldly. Madam, Huang Mengjue has repeatedly refused the 3rd prince. Indeed, a small official woman dares to turn a blind eye to the prince. Empress Hui's anger gradually grew, her eyes cold and sharp. She ordered someone to bring a wooden box and put a piece of golden silk and white silk inside it. Go ahead and give this thing to Huang Mengjue, hoping she won't be disrespectful, said Empress Hui casually. End of this chapter. Chapter 10, Undercover Stories. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 10, Undercover Stories Huangfu. When Huang Mengjue and Jiang Wangsheng came together, Huang Yingjun was overjoyed. He ordered people to prepare tea and dim sum. After delivering them, he dismissed all the servants in the yard. Jiang Wangsheng ate the pastry and said leisurely, "Why don't you open the things that the empress in the palace gave you? What's nice about it? Consort Hui is the birth mother of Yun Muchuan, and most likely she sent some brocade, silk, and disgusting letters." Huang Mengjue said nonchalantly. Huang Mengjue looked at the map and pointed to a city in the southern region, saying, "These two brothel women, even if they can ride horses, their speed won't be fast. That's roughly here. I have informed the 6 places and the scattered people from Dali Temple nearby that we can definitely stop her." Jiang Wangsheng hesitated and reminded, "Master Mingyue and his servants are warriors. Why didn't you say it earlier?" Huang Mengjue's eyebrows furrowed and he lightly drank and questioned. Jiang Wangsheng was taken aback and said, "You didn't ask. You wouldn't take the initiative to reveal such important information." Huang Mengjue ordered someone to write a letter with pen and ink. Dragons and phoenixes danced in chaos, and he sent a message to the pigeons flying in Dali Temple. Can she really be an ordinary person if she can kill Wen Qingfeng? Jiang Wangsheng spoke confidently, "Have you found the body?" "It's buried." Jiang Wangsheng was speechless. What was the cause of death? The embroidery needle pierced through the head and instantly killed, sealing all the acupoints on the body. The body was found 3 streets outside the Chaotian Palace. Huang Mengjue took out the map of Tianwang City, pointed to the location where the body was found, and said, "It's far from Chaotian Palace. It was discovered by a drunken man that night." Jiang Wangsheng said, "Master Mingyue, skilled in flying needles, 6th grade. Maid Yuqing, 7th grade, skilled in wielding short swords. The 2 are called masters and servants, but they are actually from the same sect." Huang Mengjue woke up in shock and said, "Rank 9 on the heavenly list, north leaving Zhuorongyue." Jiang Wangsheng continued to ask, "When did Shi Mingyue and her companions come to Tianwang City?" 8 years ago. After 8 years of hibernation in the capital of the Western Chu Empire, do you think it would be exposed for the sake of a son of a minister? Jiang Wangsheng poured water for her and pushed the teacup in front of her. Huang Mengjue murmured, "It's really a bit unbelievable. A 6th grade martial artist, placed in the city of Tianwang, is not a threat, but if they attack during a time of male and female happiness, even the 9th grade on the heavenly list will undoubtedly die." Huang Mengjue sneered, "Which 9th rank on the heavenly list would go to Chaotian Palace to seek pleasure?" Jiang Wangsheng was dumbfounded. However, with their identities, large-scale official banquets are bound to appear. If you want to kill someone, it can be said to be as easy as a palm, Huang Mengjue worried. "Your words are not worth it, unless they want to kill you." "It's you. They want to kill you." Huang Mengjue's voice suddenly increased. "No grievances, no grudges, why did you kill me? I think you wanted to kill some high-ranking official." Jiang Wangsheng put down his teacup and had a feeling of lifting a stone and smashing his own foot. "You have been personally appointed as the commander-in-chief of the Xuanjia army by His Majesty. Xuanjia has a significant military role, and you are the son of the Minister of War. Of course, they do not want you to take charge of the Xuanjia army." Huang Mengjue's eyes lit up and he grasped the key to the problem. "By the way, it's those princes." Huang Mengjue continued to analyze, "The world is yet to be determined, and everyone can be a crown prince. The greatest hope is for the eldest, 2nd, and 4th princes." Jiang Wangsheng asked, "Why can't it be the 3rd prince? Do you think Yun Muchuan is the only one?" Huang Mengjue's eyes were full of contempt. "A person who indulges in debauchery, has no great ambitions, no city or mansion. Even though Empress Hui has exerted all her strength, there is no sign of his character." Jiang Wangsheng asked, "Are you very familiar with him?" "A few years ago, the innate master of the southern Tang dynasty, the Confucian sage, traveled to Western Chu and gave a lecture in Tianwang City for half a month. The younger generation of the royal family and the descendants of high-ranking officials all went to attend the lecture. At that time, I was classmates with him and our relationship was quite good. Huang Mengjue ate dim sum. To tell you the truth, your elder brother was there at that time. He was just as annoying as you. What are these words? Why am I annoying? Jiang Wangsheng was indignant. Compared to you, Jiang Wanqiu is indeed elegant and easygoing. After all, you are annoying. He is difficult to look at. Huang Mengjue stared at the watermark in the cup. Nobody expected him to go to the Ministry of Justice. Jiang Wangsheng muttered to himself, I haven't been forced by you yet. To get to the point, the person who can bury this chess piece should be the second prince, Huang Mengjue said. So, the envoy has a clear hand and eye. Once he touches the scales, even Uncle Huang will get angry. You have to think carefully, Jiang Wangsheng said seriously. Huang Mengjue's body was suffocated and he remained silent. She was able to let go of the investigation because everyone wanted to save face for her father, the Minister of Rights, Huang Yingjun. As a closed-door disciple of the sword armor elder, she is not afraid even if her opponent is the second prince, but the entire Huang family cannot be like her. Recalling the case of Wen Qingfeng, in a way, Shi Mingyue can also be said to have acted on behalf of the heavens. Outside Dali Temple, an old eunuch dressed in a purple python robe walked briskly. The minister of Dali Temple has long received the news and went out with the director who is still here and some people to welcome him. The old eunuch drank lightly and said, Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Everyone hurriedly knelt down. I deeply regret to hear that Wen Qingfeng, the son of Wen Aiqing, was brutally murdered. Due to the limited authority of the Dali Temple, I have entrusted the case of Wen Qingfeng to the court for investigation. I have led 100 forbidden troops to the underworld, and I pledge to find the culprit and bring him to justice. Dear officials, I respectfully comply with your Majesty's orders. While the two were silent, Huang Yingjun walked into the courtyard. Huang Mengjue quickly stood up and said, Father, what's up? Uncle Huang, Jiang Wangsheng nodded and saluted. Huang Yingjun was quite pleased and thought to himself, as long as they have more contact, this engagement will definitely be successful. Just now, my people have received news that your Majesty has ordered that the Dali Temple will no longer be responsible for the case of Wen Qingfeng, said Huang Yingjun word by word. What? Why not let us investigate the case at Dali Temple? Is it difficult for the Ministry of Justice to investigate? Huang Mengjue asked angrily. Huang Yingjun's face was serious and he said, This matter is significant, and you cannot intervene. Give up. Your Majesty has instructed the second prince to lead someone to investigate. Huang Mengjue snorted coldly, Thieves shout to catch thieves. What are you saying? Huang Yingjun frowned. Jiang Wangsheng suddenly exclaimed in surprise, pointing to the courtyard wall and saying, It seems like someone is there. After listening, the two suddenly looked at what Jiang Wangsheng pointed to. Jiang Wangsheng flicked his finger a little, and his internal breath broke through his body, transforming into a qi sword. He hit the wall like a drop of water falling into a lake, but did not penetrate. Instead, it turned into waves and forced the person out. The newcomer was a young eunuch, with a pale face, delicate eyebrows and eyes, and dressed in a purple python robe. Huang Yingjun's eyes narrowed and his gaze fell on his clothes, asking, Are you Your Majesty's secret decree? The young eunuch took out a golden scroll from his sleeve. A few people quickly knelt down upon seeing the situation. Huang Yingjun doesn't know the person in front of him. According to tradition, Your Majesty's secret edict should be issued by the 5 chief eunuchs in the palace. At this moment, he became curious about His Majesty's thoughts. Huang Yingjun was about to come forward and take it when the young eunuch dodged and stopped him. The young eunuch chuckled lightly and said, Mr. Huang, you misunderstood. This secret edict was not for you, but for Miss Huang Mengjue. Huang Yingjun looked at Huang Mengjue in confusion. Huang Mengjue, take the order, the young eunuch said solemnly. My lord, lead the decree. The young eunuch explained, Lord Huang, in order to cover up, your majesty, Fang Nukai quietly left the palace. But there were many spies at the entrance, so I chose to cross the wall and engage in activities. Please don't take it to heart, Lord Huang. My father. Law laughed. Huang Yingjun arched his hand. The young eunuch bowed his head and saluted, saying, Your Excellency has turned the demon into a servant. The young eunuch looked at Jiang Wangsheng and said, Jiang Gongzi just made that attack. Judging from his internal power control, he is also among the top in the 9th grade. He is really pushing the waves behind the Yangtze River. Jiang Wangsheng nodded with a meaningful smile. The edict has been delivered, and I am leaving. The young eunuch leaped away. Huang Mengjue did not directly read the secret edict, but ran to the wall and touched it with his hand, muttering to himself, surprisingly, there was no trace left. Huang Yingjun asked, Wang Sheng, is that person of the 9th grade? Jiang Wangsheng's eyes showed a rare expression of doubt, I think so. Just now, it was he who deliberately revealed his breath that made me notice. He's testing you. Huang Yingjun exclaimed in surprise. Yes. Huang Yingjun whispered, if you want to cover up, it would be easy with the strength of that eunuch. But your majesty has sent a young eunuch whom you have never seen before, wearing a python robe. Jiang Wangsheng secretly slandered, we need to have Tianji Pavilion investigate this person. Huang Yingjun asked, Mengjue, what orders does your majesty have? Just as Huang Mengjue was about to say something, he gave a mysterious smile and pulled Jiang Wangsheng, making a face. Dad, I received the order as an official of the Dali Temple. You are from the Ministry of Rites, so you cannot show it to me. Okay. Huang Yingjuan's gaze fell on her hand holding Jiang Wangsheng's sleeve, and she laughed heartily as she left. Huang Mengjue roughly glanced at it, took a deep breath, and said in a deep voice, Your Majesty has asked me to continue investigating. I understand. Jiang Wangsheng crossed his legs and crossed his spring water jade flute, do you have someone you completely trust? Have, who? My father. Upon hearing this answer, Jiang Wangsheng almost dropped the jade flute in his hand. Hold still for now, and the Dali Temple will remove all vigilance. Jiang Wangsheng stood up, since the secret decree requires you to continue investigating, it means that your majesty knows where the master and servant Shi Mingyue are. Jiang Wangsheng knocked on the table and instructed, you stay calm these days and don't run around. When the time comes, I will have someone deliver the letter to you. What do you mean? Jiang Wangsheng said, please contact Yi Chenglong and prepare your horse in advance. Catch someone and bring him along. The faint moon hangs in the sky, the stars are sparse, and large clouds block the radiance. The entire Tianwang city is about to enter its darkest hour. At the entrance of the city gate, two slender figures hurriedly left the city. Not long after, Huang Mengjue appeared from all directions with a dozen or so people, presenting tokens to the defenders and galloping out of the city to arrest them. After a moment of silence, another person emerged from the darkness and sneered coldly. As the intelligence suggests, the people of Dali Temple are very foolish. End of this chapter.